Chapter 1291. Russell Nanda walked in the garden of the headquarters on his stomach. Just then, Zella appeared behind him without any warning. "Sir, what are you thinking about? The supernatural world in L.A. is deeper than I thought," Russell Nanda said emotionally. Russell Nanda sighed. "Let's not talk about the spiritualist who sold insurance a few days ago. Today, I heard that two extremely powerful spiritualists have appeared. One is a girl in black, and the other is a tall woman. Logically speaking, these two people shouldn't be unknown. But we have never heard of them before coming here. Yet they are so powerful that it makes one's hair stand on end. Why don't I ask around and see if I can recruit them into our team? Go." Before Russell Nanda moved his headquarters to Los Angeles, he had asked around in Los Angeles. From what he'd heard, the supernatural world in L.A. seemed to only have a few weak people. To the North American Light Society, a big city like L.A. was a place with no supernatural forces. It was like a huge cake. As for the original force stationed in L.A., the supernatural organization, Russell Nanda didn't care about them at all. But who would have thought that L.A. would have such a master? "Oh, is there any movement from the supernatural organization?" "Nothing. I remember that Wes was the acting president, right? What about now? I looked into it a while ago. It seems like a Chinese is the president now." "Do you have his information?" "Some. On the surface, he's a university professor, but he's an illegal doctor in private. He makes a lot of money by practicing medicine illegally." Zella pouted in disdain. "TSK, this supernatural organization is really something. They actually found such a person to be the president. I really don't know what West is thinking." Russell Nanda's laughter was filled with disdain. "Sir, do you want me to give him some trouble? Don't go to their headquarters. There's a powerful evil spirit there." Russell was still very concerned about the evil spirit that killed dozens of spiritualists. "Do you know where he lives?" "Yes. Go and give him some trouble." "To what extent?" Zella asked. "As long as you don't expose us," Russell Nanda said. "Make their new president homeless." Thud thud thud. "Little Jerlin, stop hitting me. You're going to crack my head." Hanks felt a headache coming on. In the past, Hanks could still endure Jerlin's abuse. At most, Jerlin would hug his skull and bite it. But ever since Chen Zhao returned from outside and gave Jerlin a golden awl, everything changed. Of course, the truth was that Jerlin had stolen the golden awl herself. Chen Zhao had originally kept the golden awl as a decoration. To prevent Jerlin from getting it, he had placed it on a higher shelf. In the end, King Kong helped little Jerlin take it down. From then on, Hank's nightmare began. Hanks felt that his skull had been cracked by the force of the blows. "Beautiful Miss Faylai, please save me. Please save me from the hands of this little demon." Hanks could only ask for help from Faylai. Faylai, on the other hand, was studying the Book of Changes, ignoring Hanks's pleas. "Someone save me." Hanks wanted to cry but had no tears. This pair of mother and daughter were really cold-blooded and heartless. "Miss Faylai, do you want to hear my adventure stories?" Hanks asked. "Not interested. Chen's adventure stories are better than yours." At first, Faylai was still interested in the so-called Treasure Island, but she slowly lost interest. Of course, the main reason was that she was pregnant. Hank's adventure stories were all the same. It was always about how he experienced difficulties and finally found the so-called treasure. He might as well watch those old-fashioned adventure movies. Just then, Chen Zhao returned to the living room after swimming. He saw Jerlin hugging the skull and the golden awl in her hand. He reached out to grab it. No, don't take my hammer. Don't." Little Jerlin fully displayed her talent of crying and throwing a tantrum. She hugged the golden awl tightly and refused to let go. Chen Zhao's face was filled with helplessness. In the past, it was fine if Jerlin hugged a skull, but the golden awl was too dangerous for a child. So no matter how unhappy Jerlin was, Chen Zhao still took the golden awl. "Daddy." "Oh no, I don't want Daddy anymore. Dear Chen, you're God's messenger. You saved me from this little demon's torture." Chen Zhao grabbed Hanks. "Hanks, how did you find the treasure island in the first place?" "It was God's guidance." Thud. Chen Zhao knocked Hanks with the golden awl. "Don't talk nonsense with me." Fine, Hanks said helplessly. Hank said helplessly. I found a great witch. She helped me divine the location of Treasure Island. I passed through the mysterious sea, passed through 7 mysterious islands, and finally arrived at Treasure Island. What about the route? Just then, Failai put down the book in her hand. Chun, you said that you'd wait for me to give birth, and then go find the Treasure Island together. You can't go back on your word. I didn't say that we're going now. I'm just asking. Let's uncover the secret of the mysterious Treasure Island together. That's more interesting. Aren't we together now? Nope. Then you can ask. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. Hanks, let me ask you. Which mysterious sea are you talking about? And what are the 7 mysterious islands? The mysterious sea is not any known sea, only that which can guide a ship into the mysterious sea. In order to guide my ship into the mysterious sea, that great witch turned into a petrel. After bringing my ship into the mysterious sea, she disappeared from this world forever. Now that satellites cover the entire world, there's no mysterious sea. I don't know what satellites are, but the mysterious sea doesn't exist in this world. When the ship entered the mysterious sea, my crew and I saw countless magical or terrifying sea creatures, as well as the 7 mysterious islands. Then tell me about the 7 mysterious islands. I've only been to the first island, the Petrified Island. I saw the legendary Medusa there. Half of the crew was petrified and stayed on the Petrified Island forever. After that, I didn't dare to go to the other islands anymore. I only let the crew go. We kept losing people along the way. When we reached the Treasure Island, only my dog and I were left. Why do you have to go to the island? You know that it's dangerous, but you still want to go? Because only by going to the island and finding the guide can we find the next island. Chapter 1292. Every island has a magical creature, Hanks said. If you find it, you'll be able to get it to guide you to the next mysterious island. Just then Chun Zhao suddenly frowned. There seemed to be a guest on the other side of Mirror Lake. At the same time, 2 men and 1 woman came from the other side. All 3 had white hair. Zella glanced at Hoey beside him. Hoey, that person's house is in front. Destroy it completely? Yes, destroy it. Zella nodded. Okay, I understand. Hoey took a step forward and chanted an incantation. His arms began to slowly rise. Just then, waves appeared on the surface of the lake. At first, it was just a small ripple. But as the ripples spread, the waves grew larger and larger. When the waves were 100 meters out, they were already several meters high. Moreover, it was still rising. Hoey's arms rose higher and higher, and the waves grew higher and higher. Finally, the waves reached a height of more than 30 meters. Hoey suddenly pushed out his palms. A 30-meter-high wave could capsize even a medium-sized ocean-going ship in the sea. By now, Hoey was already having trouble, but he still persisted and kept releasing his magic. Go! Hoey yelled. The waves instantly sped up and rushed toward the villa. Chun Zhao's expression changed. He saw the waves coming at him. Chun Zhao's anger soared instantly. But seeing the waves, Chun Zhao could only release dark lava to cover Failai and Jerlin. Boom! The waves hit the villa, and the entire front hall fell into darkness. But the villa was unharmed. After the waves receded, Chun Zhao was stunned. Apart from some water seeping in through the crack of the door, the villa was still intact. The waves just now were shockingly powerful, but it was clearly impossible to destroy the villa in one go. Robio had designed this villa meticulously. According to Chun Zhao's request, he'd designed it for hurricane, flood, and earthquake protection. Robio had helped Chun Zhao design it wholeheartedly. He hadn't done it half-heartedly. The impact this time fully showed Robio's intentions. Chun Zhao's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Hugging Failai and Jerlin gently, he turned back to look at Failai. Chun, what's going on? It's fine. Maybe someone's messing around here. I'll go take a look. Chun Zhao handed Jerlin to Failai. Hoey, why isn't it working? That villa is stronger than I thought. Hoey said helplessly. Can you do it again? Zella asked. I can't, unless I use a secret technique. Then, Zella was just about to use the secret method. Suddenly she felt a dangerous aura. A 3-headed hound had appeared in the forest by the shore. It was a Cerberus. Zella instantly bristled. At this moment, another white-haired man stepped forward. Appleton, stop it, Zella said solemnly. But at this moment, there was a rustling sound in the grass on the right. The three of them turned around and saw 9 huge snake heads poking out of the grass. The surface of the lake suddenly rippled, and a giant object rose from the water. That one was so big that it made one's scalp go numb. The moment Amon came out of the water, Zella, Hoey, and Appleton finally realized that they were in big trouble. Zella saw a figure standing above them. This person is flying? When did he appear? Chen Zhao slowly descended from the sky. Welcome to my house. Chen Zhao looked at the three with a smile. Can I know why you're here? And your identities? Sir, I'm sorry, Zella said calmly. We were practicing magic here. We lost control just now. Her tone was sincere and apologetic. I see. Chen Zhao scratched his head. My house has been damaged and suffered heavy losses, so I need some compensation. Can you tell me which organization you're from? At least I can ask for some compensation from your organization. We're just idle spiritualists, Zella said. We're not organized. Suddenly a wave of heat hit them. The three were shocked. A fiery red figure charged over and pushed Hoey to the ground, opening its mouth to bite. Seeing that Hoey was attacked, Zella and Appleton were about to attack. But the next moment a sword struck. Ah! Zella's arm flew up. Sorry, my pet didn't seem to be full at noon. Chen Zhao watched as Abitos tore off Hoey's flesh. Hoey screamed in pain. Now, can you tell me which organization you're from? North American Illuminati, Zella said, holding his arm, his face pale. Chen Zhao took out his phone. Wes, gather everyone. That's right, everyone. I'm going to kill someone today. Oh right, what's your address? You think I'll tell you? North American Illuminati headquarters. Russell Nanda's expression changed. Hoey's dead. Just then, 2 white-haired men rushed into Russell South's office. Sir, Hoey's dead. Yes, I felt it. What happened? Who killed Hoey? Where did he go? Russell did not answer his subordinates. He picked up the phone and called Zella. Hello. A stranger's voice came from the other end. Who are you? Russell asked, frowning. You sent people to attack me and my family. How come you don't even know who I am? How's Zella now? You'll know soon. I'm warning you, Russell growled. If you dare to hurt Zella, I won't let you go. Oh, I want to try my courage. The tone on the other end was frivolous. Stop right there and then. Zella's pregnant. Hearing the words, Chen Zhao froze. He glanced at the pale-faced Zella. After a moment of hesitation. Can you tell me your address? I want to return this pregnant woman to you. If you dare to come, then come. Russell gave the address to Chen Zhao. Sir, what's going on? Supernatural organization. Russell Nanda said, his face livid. Supernatural organization? They dare to mess with us? Gather everyone and prepare for battle. They should be here soon. Are they our people? Or are the contestants gathering too? Russell's eyes flashed. After a moment of hesitation he said, no need. We have enough people. Russell Nanda was furious, but he had to calm down because of the situation. Chapter 1293. What's wrong with the North American Illuminati? They look like someone owes them money. I don't know. I saw them wearing a lot of weapons just now. It looks like they're going to fight someone. Whatever. It's none of our business, Jomiai said nonchalantly. Not only did Jomiai and Dorinko realize the problem, but many people in the North American Illuminati's headquarters also realized it. Nevertheless, they were the kind of people who didn't care about it. The headquarters of the North American Illuminati is so big. When can our headquarters be so big? We can have a few hundred people, and it won't be crowded, Jomiai said enviously. We only have 8 people. Why do we need to build it so big? The North American Illuminati only have around 20 people. They didn't build it so big. I think that if they have money, they should spend it like this. That's how they can show off their authority. Look, they're coming out. Dorinko, why do they all have white hair? Is it a trend to dye their hair white? No, it should be some kind of secret technique. Dorinko shook her head. But I don't know what it is either. Russell Nanda's expression was extremely serious. He didn't smile, just like a volcano that was about to erupt. His subordinates behind him were also filled with righteous indignation. At the same time, Chen Zhao was driving his car. Zella sat beside him, but her face was extremely pale, and her body kept trembling. The two buses in front of them took the lead to clear the way. Zella was pregnant, but now one of her arms was cut off, and now she was in a state of collapse. Vaguely, she regretted attacking Chen Zhao's home without investigating him thoroughly. Just then Wes called. President, the headquarters of the North American Illuminati should be in front. If we're going to attack someone's headquarters, we should just knock on the door, Chen Zhao said. In the previous 2 attacks of different degrees, the enemy had just knocked on the door. Everyone in the bus also felt that since they were going to fight, they should indeed appear like this. Boom. The door of the North American Illuminati's headquarters was knocked open. Jomiai and Darinko were both shocked. Who is it? Is it an enemy? The North American Illuminati are preparing for battle and waiting for them. Darinko was shocked. Huh. Amy, look at that person. Jamie's looked over and saw Chen Zhao. It's him? Why is he here? Jamie's had an incredulous look on her face. Chen Zhao got out of the car with his hands in his pockets. The members of the supernatural organization also got out one after another. West held a head in his hand and strode to Russell Nander. He casually tossed Appleton's head in front of Russell Nander. Mr. Russell, this is yours. I'll return it to you. What do you mean? Russell Nanda and his men glared at West angrily. That's what I mean, West said calmly. Bastard. Russell Nanda was furious. This is murder. Murder. You sent people to attack our leader. His wife and children are at home. You also sent people to attack our members multiple times. We are enforcing justice. Now, the supernatural organization is officially declaring war on the North American Radiant Society. West said coldly, although West was usually calmer. Even a clay figurine would have some anger. After being harassed so many times, West could no longer keep his cool. Moreover, they'd really gone overboard this time. They'd actually gone to Chen Zhao's house and attacked it. Even if they were judged internationally, they would still be in the right. As an authoritative supernatural organization, they were not allowed to carry out such attacks that involved ordinary people. This could even be judged as a supernatural terrorist attack. Russell Nanda's face was green. He didn't speak anymore. In this situation, words wouldn't be as effective as fists. Do it, Russell Nanda roared. 2 white-haired men charged at West, but when they were less than 5 meters away, they suddenly paused. The next moment, an extremely fast figure charged out. The 2 white-haired men felt a chill on their necks, and their bodies fell to the ground. When everyone saw who it was, they were all dumbfounded. An elite. I seem to remember that your people didn't sign the insurance contract that day, right? Do you want another one now? An elite smiled at the people from the Radiant Society. Damn. Paco Luoan. It's you. Russell Nanda's expression turned serious. He remembered Ang Elite. Back then, he and Zella had wanted to rope Ang Elite in. He didn't expect Ang Elite to be from the supernatural organization. Ang Elite and Wester worked together seamlessly. It could be said that they were the complete opposite of each other's attributes and magic. West's slow field was extremely slow, while Angelite's speed spell was extremely fast. These 2 completely opposite magic spells brought them terrifying lethality. Who are those people? That uncle isn't an ordinary person. They're so cruel. They killed 2 people from the Radiant Society as soon as they met. Chen Zhao turned to look at Jamie's and Darinko, who were standing on the grass not far away. He smiled. Dragging Zella, he walked toward the 2 girls. Hi, little girl. Chen Zhao greeted the 2 girls with a sincere smile. I didn't expect to see you here. Seeing Zella in Chen Zhao's hand, Russell shouted, Get Zella back. A white-haired giant charged at Chen Zhao, holding a huge axe several meters long. Arg! Kid die. Seeing the giant charging at them, Jamie's and Darinko paled in fright. Watch out. But Chen Zhao didn't seem to notice the terror coming from behind. The next moment, a fiery red figure charged out. Just as the giant was about to attack Chen Zhao's back, it crashed into him. The giant man flew dozens of meters away and smashed heavily into the wall of the headquarters. The entire wall collapsed with a loud bang. Gaia's entire body was burning with flames. She crossed her arms in front of her chest, like a god born from the flames. She emitted an inviolable dignity and surging pressure. When the contestants in the headquarters saw Gaia, many of them were horrified. They'd realized that Gaia was the terrifying woman from the previous night. "You two are from the North American Illuminati?" Chen Zhao asked James and Dorinko. James and Dorinko shook their heads at the same time. "No." Chapter 1294. The two glanced at each other, their faces filled with shock. "Who are you? Why are you asking so much? Do you want to take revenge for them? Or stand up for them?" "Sir." Just then, Gimli and Serena ran over in a hurry. Chen Zhao looked at them. Gimli raised his hands. "We mean no harm. This has nothing to do with us." As soon as they saw Gaia, they knew something was wrong. At that moment, a green light began to appear in the surrounding bushes. Then skeleton soldiers walked out of the forest. Gimli and Serena were shocked. They realized that there was a girl in black among the people Chen Zhao had brought. It turned out that the girl in black and the huge woman were together. No wonder they were so strong. But who were they exactly? Also, what grievances did they have with the Illuminati? Gimli looked at Zella, who Chen Zhao was dragging. After a moment of hesitation he said, "Sir, can you let Miss Zella go?" No matter what, he and Zella were friends. Now that he saw Zella's miserable state, he couldn't bear to let her go. Chen Zhao glanced at Zella and tossed her to Gimli. "Logically, I shouldn't let her go, but she's pregnant and my wife is too," Chen Zhao said calmly. At the same time he looked at Zella. "I look forward to your revenge, but if you want it, you better think about your child." Gimli held Zella and retreated. This man gave him a very dangerous feeling. Russell Nanda had never taken the supernatural organization seriously. But after the all-out battle, he realized that he'd underestimated the organization. No, more accurately, he'd overestimated the Illuminati. They had overwhelming power. Every member of the supernatural organization had the ability to crush anyone. Once they found a chance, they would attack. It had only been 10 minutes since the start of the battle, but they had already lost 5 of their members. "Stop!" Russell Nanda was both anxious and angry. He used a secret technique, and his magic power began to rise rapidly. Gimli and Serena couldn't help but look at Russell South. So powerful. When did Russell become so powerful? No, he used a secret technique. Russell Nanda scanned the battlefield and finally fixed his gaze on Chen Zhao. As long as they could capture Chen Zhao, the battle would be over. Russell Nanda took advantage of the fact that no one was in front of him and charged at Chen Zhao without a care. However, it seemed that no one came to stop him. Russell Nanda was secretly delighted. He knew that even if he used the secret technique, he wouldn't be able to completely control the supernatural organization. Perhaps he had a chance in a one-on-one fight, but none of the members of the supernatural organization were weak. It was impossible for him to expel all of them. That was why he decided to capture the ringleader first. Jillian and Serena watched as Russell Nanda approached Chen Zhao. They wondered how Chen Zhao would react. However, just as Russell thought he was about to succeed, Chen Zhao swept his leg out and Russell flew away like a rag doll. Everyone's expressions froze. Was Russell Nanda that weak? In their eyes, Chen Zhao's kick was too ordinary. It was so ordinary that no one could find any highlights. This shouldn't be Russell Nanda's true strength. He shouldn't be this weak. Russell Nanda climbed up with difficulty. His eyes were filled with anger and unwillingness, as well as disbelief. How was this possible? How could that man be so strong? Russell Nanda's body wobbled. He couldn't even stand properly. Chen Zhao's kick indeed looked ordinary, but it was powerful. But the key point was that the force was great. This kick almost shattered Russell South's ribs and shoulder blade. The fact that Russell Nanda was still standing was already a testament to his strong willpower. Finally, the North American Light Society surrendered. They couldn't take this kind of massacre anymore. All of their pride and courage had been destroyed by the supernatural organization's ruthless methods. They knelt on the ground with their hands on their heads. The people from the supernatural organization followed the rules. In modern wars, they weren't as ruthless as they were in ancient times. It was the same for most fights in the supernatural world. Do you still want to fight? Your subordinates have all surrendered. Chen Zhao looked at Russell Nanda. Russell Nanda finally couldn't bear the huge physical and psychological trauma. He knelt on the ground and struggled to support his body with his arms. He couldn't stop crying. Because of his arrogance and ignorance, the North American Light Society was greatly injured. Chen Zhao also felt that the massacre was enough. There was no need to continue. The people of the supernatural organization weren't butchers. They could fight with all their strength against demons, but they were facing humans now. Moreover, there were countless pairs of eyes looking at them. If they went too far, they might become the enemy of the entire North American supernatural world. After all, no matter where you were, it was hard to accept killing your own kind. From now on, the North American Light Society will no longer exist. At least in America. I don't want to hear your name, Chen Zhao said calmly. You have to agree to this request whether you want to or not. I'm not asking for your opinions. I'm ordering you to do it. Also, West will talk to you about the compensation. Chen Zhao turned around and gestured at West. I'll leave him to you, Chen Zhao said. West and Russell Nanda were old acquaintances. But in the past, West had been humiliated by Russell Nanda more than once. West stood there, but Russell Nanda couldn't stand up. West stood there, but Russell South could not stand up. West stood there, but Russell Nanda couldn't stand up. There was no need to say anything. Russell Nanda was already humiliated enough. Or do you need to wait until your injuries are better? Russell Nanda raised his head and looked at West with a complicated gaze. Russell Nanda looked up at West with a complicated expression. Was it anger or hatred? The subordinates that he had painstakingly recruited and nurtured were killed by the other party. The subordinate he'd worked so hard to find and train had been killed. But he also regretted it. This conflict could have been avoided. Say it. Russell didn't want to lose his last dignity before West. Even now, he was almost fainting from the pain, but he still gritted his teeth and held on. From now on, the North American Light Society will leave America. Within 3 years, the North American Light Society isn't allowed to enter America. The supernatural organization must make a copy of their magic books and compensate them $20 million. Russell Nanda's heart was bleeding. He looked up at West. What if I don't agree? Chapter 1295. Violence could not solve all problems, but it could solve most of them. Russell Nanda and all the members of the North American Light Society were terrified. They no longer dared to think about the consequences of rejecting West's offer. The authority that the North American Illuminati had built up for more than 20 years had long since disappeared. On the other hand, the supernatural organization was transforming from a lamb to a tiger. No one dared to look down on the supernatural organization anymore. Throughout the battle, the supernatural organization had displayed unparalleled strength. Every one of them could be said to be the cream of the crop. West returned to Chen Zhao's side. President, he agreed to our conditions. I've gotten my revenge, and I've earned some face. It's about time to go. Actually, Chen Zhao had wanted to tear down the entire North American headquarters. However, there were many people in the North American Light Society's headquarters who were here to participate in the competition. If they really demolished the house, it was inevitable that they would accidentally injure others. Chen Zhao didn't plan to become enemies with the entire world. The current spirit world was pretty much the same as the so-called Jianghu. Originally, the North American Radiant Society was considered the leader of the martial arts world. But now, the supernatural organization had risen and defeated the martial arts alliance master. But that didn't mean the supernatural organization could do whatever they wanted. This was no longer a feudal society, but a society ruled by law. If it was just a small-scale conflict, they could still use the internal rules of the spirit world to adjudicate it. After all, they were the ones in the right. No matter where the North American Radiant Society sued, they would still be in the right. However, if unrelated people were involved, then even if it was reasonable, it would become unreasonable. Guild leader, now that we've established our dominance, the North American Radiant Club can no longer hold this competition. Should we take over? We take over? How much will it cost? Anyway, the compensation from the North American Illuminati is definitely enough for us to hold a competition. Chen Zhao looked at the headquarters of the North American Illuminati. Many people were watching from the windows. These participants are a mix of good and bad. What's the point of competing with these bumpkins? Expand the supernatural organization's influence. This is a rare opportunity. And then, if we expand our influence, there will definitely be more troubles. Apart from that, what else can we gain? For example, in terms of money or power? Chen Zhao asked. West hesitated, because it had always been his dream to develop the supernatural organization into a top-tier organization. But now that the opportunity was right in front of him, Chen Zhao objected. West had never considered the issue of benefits. Chen Zhao's question put him in a difficult spot. We are strong now mainly because we are using the elite strategy. Although we have a small number of people, every one of us is an elite. Although we have a lot of funds, if we want to expand our influence, we will definitely need to expand our scale. When that time comes, will our annual funding of $20 million be enough? Right now, all of us have high benefits, but if we lower them, what will the old members think? Chen Zhao looked at West. Chen Zhao wasn't talented in management. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let West manage it. However, Chen Zhao's mind was clear. He knew what the supernatural organization's position was. It's much better to gather our resources on our current members than on the new members who join us out of admiration, Chen Zhao said. Fine. West thought for a moment, and finally decided to listen to Chen Zhao's suggestion. There was actually another reason that Chen Zhao didn't mention. That was trouble. The more people the supernatural organization had, the more influence they had, and the more trouble they would have. Right now, Chen Zhao planned to guard this piece of land. He wasn't planning to save the world or maintain world peace. As long as no one caused trouble in his territory, Chen Zhao didn't care who wanted to cause trouble outside. Of course, West had his own considerations. Why was the supernatural organization so strong now? It was because of Chen Zhao and the unity of the old members. If anyone was bullied, they just had to shout, and the group would attack them. Plus, they had enough funds, so they had enough resources and good benefits. But if there were more people, the benefits and resources would decrease. Would the old members be happy? If there was such a situation in the organization, then it would be impossible for them to be as united as they were now. It wasn't just Chen Zhao. Most people in the organization didn't want to change this atmosphere. There was another point that West had to consider. There were fewer people now, so everyone helped each other. There were no conflicts of interest. But if there were more people, it was hard to guarantee that people wouldn't form cliques. Never overestimate human nature. There were only about 20 people in the organization now. Chen Zhao was in charge of everything. But if there were more people, who could guarantee that there wouldn't be some idiots who wanted to fight for power with Chen Zhao? With West's understanding of Chen Zhao might not choose to fight for power. Instead, he would choose to leave. Then, the people who had gathered together because of Chen Zhao might also fall apart. The supernatural organization might go back to their old ways. I didn't expect the supernatural organization to be so scary. Jimmy shook his head. In the past, I thought that our guards were strong enough, but any one of the supernatural organization's members can probably wipe out the guards. Where did the supernatural organization find such powerful members? There are always many strong people hiding in the crowd in this world. But why can they be gathered by the supernatural organization? I don't think their president is that strong. He can still defeat Russell Nanda easily after using the secret technique. I don't think he's weak. After Russell used the secret technique, I did feel that his magic power increased a lot, but it doesn't seem special. That's just what you think. I heard that even the headquarters of the Light Society covets this secret technique, but only Russell Nanda has it right now. What's so special about this secret technique? I can't say. Jimmy seemed to be afraid to talk about it. With our relationship, we can't talk about it. This is related to the grudge between the Light Society and the North American Light Society. It's not good for you to know too much. This battle was too sudden, and most people had yet to figure out what was going on. They didn't even know who was fighting the North American Light Society. This caused some rumors to spread among people. Or, someone had purposely spread rumors claiming that the attackers were a group of evil spiritualists. Chapter 1296. The North American Light Society had moved. In one night, everyone had left, including the competitors. But no one dared to come to the supernatural organization for now. The supernatural organization might not have the same authority as the North American Light Society in a short time, but they definitely had a bad reputation. If they had the chance, they would kill. Normal spiritualists would not kill, because killing someone was a very troublesome matter. But the supernatural organization was not afraid of it. As long as they had a reason, they would kill until blood flowed like a river. Russell Nanda gave the money without hesitation. They had to. Otherwise, none of them would be able to leave Los Angeles. After the battle with the North American Light Society, West realized the supernatural organization's position. As for the members of the association, they also realized what level they were at, and the difference in strength between them and the other members of the association. There was another big thing, at least for the others in the organization. Gaia had passed the second level of the Tower of Trials. It was another party. Although everyone had a good time at the party, but everyone was full of energy, especially those who hadn't even passed the first level. As for the people on the second level, there was still a big gap between them. Norma was the kind of person who didn't fight. If she could pass, she would pass. If she couldn't, she wouldn't risk her life. Because Chun Zhao had led the way, Harold had been struggling on the fourth level. She didn't plan on going down to the second level. Angalit, Jalanash, and Mord had just reached the second level. They weren't familiar with the monsters there yet, so they were still far from breaking through. There were only two things that Chun Zhao cared about now. First, of course, was Fei Lai's belly. After 6 months of pregnancy, the baby in her belly would develop faster than before. At the same time, the belly would grow bigger faster. Fei Lai's belly would also get bigger and bigger every day. Chun Zhao and Fei Lai went to the hospital for a checkup. The due date was already known. It should be between June 27th and July 1st. Usually, the due date was calculated from the first day of the last menstrual period. After that, there would be 280 days and 7 days of menstruation. However, less than 5% of women could give birth on the day of the due date. Therefore, most hospitals would give 3 or 4 days between the due date and the due date, which belonged to the time limit of the due date. It was also rare to give birth outside of the due date. Chun Zhao also had to listen to the obstetrician about the due date. Chun Zhao himself couldn't be sure. After all, he wasn't very familiar with gynecology. Chun Zhao rarely went out these days. If it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't go out. The other thing was Evans. Although Evans had become a lot more cheerful recently, he still saw that thing. The thing that even Chun Zhao couldn't see. For now, Chun Zhao and Gaia were helpless too. There weren't many things that could make the two of them feel helpless, so it was even more uncomfortable. Of course, the current situation was not bad. Evans did not do anything out of the ordinary. "Mr. Chun, can you come to the beer factory?" Felwood called Chun Zhao. "It's almost finished. Come and see if there's anything that needs to be changed." In fact, Felwood didn't need to inform Chun Zhao. Because of the beer factory, Chun Zhao let Denver take care of everything. Chun Zhao had promised that he wouldn't interfere with the management and production. Apart from arranging for Bant to go in, Chun Zhao didn't really care about anything else. Even for the construction of the beer factory, Chun Zhao only went to the construction site occasionally. "Did you inform Mr. Denver?" "Yes, he'll come in the afternoon." "Okay, call me when he arrives," Chun Zhao said. "I'll go over then." They were less than 5 kilometers away from the beer factory. It wouldn't even take 10 minutes to drive there. In the afternoon, Felwood called again to inform Chun Zhao that Denver had arrived. "Mr. Chun." Denver was quite satisfied with Chun Zhao's trust. He liked this kind of cooperation. For example, he could buy as many machines and raw materials as Denver wanted. Of course, the bills had to be written clearly. Chun Zhao nodded. Just then, Felwood walked out to greet the two. "Mr. Chun, Mr. Denver, hello." Felwood brought the two of them around the construction site. "Mr. Chun, Mr. Denver, do you have any plans to modify the main structure of the factory?" Chun Zhao looked at Denver. "I don't know about that. You can ask Mr. Denver. I just looked at the fermentation pond. It's 30 by 30. I don't think it's big enough, so I suggest expanding it or building another fermentation pond. Denver looked at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao would have to spend money to expand it. But just then Felwood said, "No problem. I'll arrange for 2 more fermentation ponds to be built in the next 2 days. I'll finish it on time, and it won't affect the quality of the construction." "How much do you need to increase the construction budget?" Chun Zhao asked. "Mr. Chun, the cost of the fermentation pond is very low. You don't have to pay for it." It was low, but one fermentation pond would cost at least hundreds of thousands of dollars. Felwood Cisco said that he would help Chun Zhao build 2 more just to give Chun Zhao a discount. Okay. If I have any more projects, I'll find you." Chun Zhao nodded. Felwood was overjoyed. In less than 2 years, Chun Zhao had already asked him to do 4 projects. Felwood didn't doubt that Chun Zhao would have new projects. "Oh, does your company have experience with island construction?" "Mr. Chun, what kind of construction are you going to do on the island?" Felwood asked. "Private island," Chun Zhao said. Felwood Cisco's heart almost jumped out of his throat. It was a huge project. "But you might have to wait until next year," Chun Zhao said. Chun Zhao's private island was still moving. He had to wait for it to move to a suitable location before starting construction. "Mr. Chun, can you show me the structure of the island and the relevant data?" "Not yet," Chun Zhao said perfunctorily. "Plus, I haven't bought the entire island yet." Felwood Cisco thought about it and agreed with what he said. If Chun Zhao didn't buy it, everything would be empty talk. Moreover, buying an island was indeed a complicated matter. It might take 1 or 2 years. Felwood, on the other hand, had a plan in mind. He was going to find some relevant experts to train his employees. It would be troublesome if there were construction problems when he accepted the project. Chapter 1297. The construction of the beer factory was basically complete. Now they just needed to install the machines and then do some testing. The first batch of products would probably be ready by the beginning of May. However, the director of production, Bant, would be in charge of the production and flavoring. Anyway, Bant had promised Chun Zhao that if the taste wasn't good, he would pack up and leave by himself. Usually, Chun Zhao wouldn't put people under him. Chun Zhao couldn't be bothered to fight with Denver. If he really wanted to scheme against them, Chun Zhao wouldn't give Denver those conditions. Moreover, Chun Zhao didn't think that he could beat Denver in this aspect. Instead of working together with a grudge, it was better to trust them wholeheartedly. At first, when Chun Zhao invested in the factory, he wanted to make a small profit. However, after a few interactions with Denver, Chun Zhao realized that if he managed it well, he could make a lot of money. Wang He lay on the bed panting, with a woman in his arms. He hadn't been so relaxed in a long time. The filming was nearing its end. His scenes were basically done too. However, he still had to report to the crew every day. Sometimes he would have to reshoot some scenes. What made him the happiest was that his girlfriend had come to visit him these 2 days. Zhuo Xiao was also in the industry. Of course, she was a C-list celebrity. She wasn't very famous in the industry. Most of her roles were supporting roles and below. Some of the movies and shows that she had joined couldn't even be released. "Wang He, when are you coming back?" Zhuo Xiao leaned on Wang He's shoulder. She had to admit that Wang He had been like a wolf these 2 days. He didn't know how to control himself at all. She could also feel that Wang He's stamina was much better than before. In the past, Wang He was known as a little fresh meat, but Chun Zhao was a real little fresh meat. He would usually finish in 10 minutes. Now Wang He and Chun Zhao had been intimate for an hour. After recovering, they would start again. "About half a month," Wang He said. "Then I'll accompany you," Zhuo Xiao said. "I don't have much work to do recently." The only good thing about being a C-list celebrity was that she was free. She could take on 2 or 3 roles a year and finish filming in 2 weeks. On the other hand, Zhuo Xiao had gained some popularity recently. This popularity mainly came from Wang He. Wang He wasn't in the domestic entertainment industry, but there were legends about him everywhere. Meanwhile, Zhuo Xiao's popularity was basically because Wang He's fans felt that Zhuo Xiao was not worthy of Wang He. "Yes, Do you have enough money? Enough. Although Zhuo Xiao didn't take on many shows, she did go on a lot of shows, so she was quite well off. Zhuo Xiao was quite astute, at least more astute than Wang He. No matter how one looked at it, Wang He could be considered a quality stock. He had fame, wealth, and ability. Most importantly, he was quite single-minded. After dating Wang He for 3 to 4 years, their relationship was stable, and Wang He was completely devoted to her. Of course, Zhuo Xiao still wanted to make use of Wang He's reputation and connections. Wang He, you should know quite a few people in Hollywood now, right? Wang He gave a wry smile. How could I possibly know anyone? It was pure luck that I managed to land this role. However, Zhuo Xiao didn't think so. To be able to get a role in a Hollywood movie, especially as the male lead, how could it be luck? She was also in the entertainment industry, so she knew very well what a male lead in a movie needed. By the way, will Mr. Steven have an end-of-production party? Yes. Wang He immediately understood. He turned to Zhuo Xiao and asked, You want to participate? Yes. No wonder Zhuo Xiao was unwilling to return to China. Actually, Wang He could understand Zhuo Xiao's thoughts. Back when he did not accept the role, he and Zhuo Xiao had the same thoughts. Attending Hollywood parties everywhere, and making friends with Hollywood bigwigs everywhere. Before the audition ended, he had attended no less than 20 parties. He knew quite a lot of people, but this so-called acquaintance was just a nod of acquaintance and a few drinks. But in the end, none of them were of use. At this moment, Wang He thought of that big demon king again. Would that person come to Mr. Steven's end-of-production party? That seemed possible. That man was on such good terms with Steven. There was no way he wouldn't come. Looking at Zhuo Xiao's expectant eyes, Wang He could not refuse. He was not stupid. He knew that Zhuo Xiao needed to make use of his connections. This was not to say that they were making use of each other. Connections in the entertainment industry were meant to help each other, let alone a couple. You can be my female companion at the end-of-production party. Even though he knew that it would be useless, who knew? What if he got lucky? Zhuo Xiao knew that even Hollywood stars would want to attend this end-of-production party. Even if they had nothing to do with this movie, Zhuo Xiao was overjoyed. The company gave her a long leave, so that she could attend this party. If she was lucky and got to know the great director Steven, she might be able to soar like Wang He. By the way, don't run around in Los Angeles. It's not safe here, Zhuo Xiao said. This is a society governed by law. America is such a healthy country. Don't always confuse reality and movies, Zhuo Xiao said disapprovingly. Wang He smiled bitterly. What else could he say? Could he tell Zhuo Xiao that he had seen people being thrown into a meat grinder in this city? Let's go out to eat. Okay. The two of them got dressed and prepared to leave. However, they still wore the cap and aviator sunglasses that were usually worn by celebrities. Although this was Los Angeles, because of Wang He, there were still quite a number of domestic paparazzi. Even though the hotel Wang He was staying at was confidential, who knew if the resourceful paparazzi would be able to find him? This is the famous Marina restaurant, right? Yes, even Hollywood stars have to line up here. Just as the two of them were lining up, Zhuo Xiao saw a man and a woman walk past them. The man looked Asian and carried a child. Why aren't they lining up? Wang He looked up, and the woman also turned to look at him. Wang He's face turned as red as a pig's liver. Mr. Chen, you're here to eat? Yes. Chen Zhao nodded. Carrying little Jerlin, he entered the restaurant with Fei Lai. Wang He pulled Zhuo Xiao. Look at where you are. Don't talk nonsense. You might offend someone. Zhuo Xiao nodded. She wasn't stupid. From Wang He's expression, she could tell that even he couldn't afford to offend that person. She had spoken just now, because she thought that the person wasn't Chinese, and might not understand them. Wang He, is that person some big boss? Chapter 1298. Wang He and Zhuo Xiao entered the restaurant and sat down. Is he Chinese too? Zhuo Xiao asked. Yes, Wang He answered casually. He really didn't want to talk about that person. Zhuo Xiao didn't see through Wang He's thoughts, and continued asking with interest. What does he do? Is he in the film industry too? No, don't ask. Anyway, we can't afford to offend that person, especially in LA. He remembered that last time He'd accidentally barged into Chen Zhao's private room and encountered Chen Zhao's subordinates with a bunch of firearms. Wang He was doing well in the entertainment industry, but in his mind, Chen Zhao was an arms dealer. He didn't dare to offend him at all, even if Chen Zhao was in America and he was in China. How close is he to Director Steven? How do you know him? I don't know. Anyway, during the audition, Director Steven asked him who was suitable. He said I was, so I was chosen. Oh, didn't that person enter the restaurant? How come I don't see him? He must be in the private room, Wang He said. Since we know each other, should we go say hi? It'll be rude not to go. Wang He hesitated. No matter what their relationship was, Chen Zhao had at least helped him before. Whether it was in the country or abroad, there was such a rule. However, Wang He was really worried that he would see something he shouldn't see the moment he opened the door like last time. Forget it. He should be eating with his wife and child. He definitely wouldn't see anything he shouldn't see. Wang He picked up his glass and stood up. Zhuo Xiao followed. There was only one private room in Marina Restaurant. They'd been here last time too. Just as Zhuo Xiao was about to open the door, Wang He stopped her. Knock. Don't be rude, Wang He said. Knock knock. Come in. Chen Zhao's voice came from inside. Hello, Mr. Chen. Hello, lady, Wang He said. I'm here to say hi. Oh, hello. Who is this lady? Zhuo Xiao. I'm Wang He's girlfriend. Hello. This is my girlfriend Fei Lai. This is my daughter. When Wang He and Zhuo Xiao saw little Zhilin sitting at the table, they suddenly felt an indescribable sense of cuteness. Sit down, let's chat for a while. Will I disturb you? Not at all. Please take a seat. Fei Lai didn't mind and invited them to sit. How's the filming going? My scenes are almost done, but the filming is still in the final stage, Wang He said. Speaking of which, I should thank Mr. Chen for helping me fight for this opportunity. It doesn't have much to do with me. It's mainly because your acting skills are good, and you're very popular in the country. After the movie is released in the country, we need you to drive the box office. Mr. Chen, the filming is expected to end in 2 weeks. Mr. Steven's party is scheduled for May 2nd. Will you be there? I'm not going, I'm not going, I'm not going. Little Zhilin immediately shouted with a terrified expression. Godfather wants to prick little Zhilin with his beard the moment he sees her. Everyone in the private room laughed, but Zhuo Xiao's heart was slightly moved. Is Director Steven the girl's godfather? I really envy her. Fei Lai, do you want to go? Chen Zhao asked. Not really. But if we don't go after he invites us, he'll come to our house again and disturb our time alone. I'll just prepare a gift for him. If he disturbs us again, I'll release the dog to bite him. Dad, can you not release the dog? If it hurts Godfather, he might not love little Zhilin anymore. Zhilin was conflicted again. I thought you didn't like your godfather? Little Zhilin likes him, but she doesn't like him prickling me with his beard. Just then, someone suddenly appeared outside the door. It was Nafa Twain. Nafa Twain stood at the door and knocked. Hi, Chen, am I disturbing you? Hello, Mr. Nafa. Wang He and Zhuo Xiao both recognized him. He was a Hollywood A-list movie star. The two immediately became cautious. After all, this was a real celebrity. At least, Nafa Twain was definitely 100 times more famous internationally than them. Want to come? Chen Zhao asked. Chen, can we talk outside? Chen Zhao stood up and said to Wang He and Zhuo Xiao, Excuse me. Chen Zhao and Nafa Twain walked to the door. Mr. Nafa, how can I help you? Call me Twain. My friends all call me Twain. Okay, Twain. Chen, I want to ask if you have cash on hand. Chen Zhao was stunned. He looked at Nafa Twain somewhat surprised. To be honest, he really wasn't familiar with Nafa Twain. Even though they owned the restaurant together, they'd actually met less than 5 times. Even before today, the two of them still used honorifics to address each other. But today, Nafa Twain wanted to borrow money from him. To be honest, the money from the treasure hunt hadn't been transferred into Chen Zhao's account yet. However, Chen Zhao still had $30 million in his account. As long as Nafa Twain didn't ask for much, Chen Zhao could still afford it. But the key question was why? Why should he borrow money? If Nafa Twain's selling of Marina's restaurant shares to him was considered a favor, Then he was the one who owed it to Amelia, and not Nafa Twain's recognition. Amira was the one who'd helped Chen Zhao negotiate. Nafa Twain didn't go back empty-handed either. Twain, you're an A-list superstar, Chen Zhao said, smiling. You should have more money than me. I invested in a movie recently, but the box office wasn't very good. Nafa Twain said helplessly. I have almost zero cash right now. Chen Zhao knew that tycoons with huge assets usually only had around 5% of their total assets in cash. For these capitalists, putting more than 5% in the bank was a loss. For example, Chen Zhao was currently converting his cash into investment projects. Of course, the difference was that he didn't borrow money from the bank. So if one of Chen Zhao's projects failed, it would just be a loss. It wouldn't affect Chen Zhao's credit. I need $30 million, Nafa Twain said. I can guarantee that I'll pay it back in 3 months. And the interest will definitely be higher than the bank, Nafa Twain said. Can you tell me where you need money? Chen Zhao asked. Chapter 1299. Sorry, Chen Zhao said. I'm a bit short on cash. If his friend needed money, he would take it out even if it was a loss. And he knew that he couldn't pay it back. Even if Guret wanted to borrow money from him, Chen Zhao would lend it to him. Because they'd been in close contact before. They knew each other very well. This way, Chen Zhao could evaluate if he could get his money back, or how much he could get back. However, Chen Zhao didn't have much contact with Nafa Twain. Why should he lend him money? Moreover, Nafa Twain was an A-list celebrity. If he wanted money, he could definitely get it. For example, he could get a mortgage from the bank. Not only did he have the property, but his reputation was also very valuable. The bank was more than happy to lend money to Nafa Twain, as long as he was willing to pay a higher interest. Disappointment appeared in Nafa Twain's eyes. Regardless of whether Chen Zhao was telling the truth or lying, their conversation had reached an impasse. I can use the shares of Marina's restaurant as a mortgage, Nafa Twain said. Chen Zhao frowned and fell into deep thought. Firstly, Nafa Twain only had 30% of Marina's restaurant shares. It wasn't worth $30 million. However, this was based on the market price. In terms of industrial value and annual income, Marina's restaurant indeed had a lot of potential. However, 30% of the shares was still not worth $30 million to Nafa Twain. If 30% of the shares could be mortgaged for $30 million, then Marina's restaurant would be worth $100 million. This was obviously too high. Of course, normally, Nafa Twain's reputation was worth $30 million. If he could only buy 30% of the shares at a slightly higher price than the market price, and control 100% of the shares, it would be worth it. However, $30 million was really too high. I need to think about it, Chen Zhao said. Chen, I'm really tight right now. I need to get the money as soon as possible. Twain, I also want it as soon as possible, but even so, I still need to raise money. $30 million isn't a small amount. I need to see if the bank can lend me money. When can you give me an answer as soon as possible? One day. Give me 1 day to think about it. Okay. Nafa Twain nodded helplessly. I won't disturb you anymore. Enjoy your meal. After returning to the room, Chen Zhao acted like nothing had happened. However, when they were talking just now, the people inside also heard their conversation from outside the door. Of course, Zhuo Xiao and Wang He did not ask about this. After all, this had nothing to do with them, and it was likely to involve some trade secrets. At the dining table, Zhuo Xiao and Wang He behaved very politely. The four of them only talked about Hollywood matters. After the meal, Wang He and Zhuo Xiao politely bade farewell to the Chen family of 3. Only then did Fei Lai say, Chen, Nafa Twain wants to borrow money from you. Yes, but I need to ask a professional, Chen Zhao said. $30 million was not a small amount. Even if it was $3 million, he would calculate it again and again, let alone $30 million. Hi, Mr. Andrews. I'm Chen Zhao. Mr. Chen, how can I help you? Do you remember Marina's? I remember that you have 70% shares of Marina Restaurant. Do you have any plans? Or are you going to use it as a mortgage? Marina Restaurant's revenue was very high. Its annual turnover was more than $12 million. and its net profit was more than 6 million. Moreover, it was not a new business, but a mature one. According to the calculation of unlisted businesses, the current market value of the business could be calculated by multiplying the annual net income by 10 years, then subtracting the 10 years and multiplying the annual depreciation of the dollar by 3%. For most companies or businesses, if they were listed, their annual market value could not increase faster than the depreciation of the dollar, which would be a loss. Unlisted companies could not exceed the depreciation of the dollar, which would also be a loss. In short, the listed companies depended on the stock price, while the unlisted ones depended on their revenue. These two were important standards for banks to evaluate the quality of their businesses. If Chen Zhao used 70% of Marina Restaurants' shares as a mortgage, the bank would be able to borrow 1.5 to 2 times the actual value. In short, banks were not afraid of borrowing money, but they were afraid of paying it back too quickly. The more money they owed, the higher the interest they would receive. No. I want to know the current value of the other 30% of Marina Restaurants' shares. Ah, you mean the 30% shares of Nafa Twain's restaurant? Yes. The shares have been mortgaged many times. Mr. Chen, does Nafa Twain want to use the shares as a mortgage to borrow money from you? Yes, you're saying that the shares have been mortgaged many times? Usually, the first mortgage was for a high-quality business, while multiple mortgages required multiple restructuring. After each restructuring, the bank would borrow less and less money, and the interest would become higher and higher. In the end, the borrower would not be able to pay back the money. Moreover, businesses that had already been mortgaged couldn't be traded, let alone repeatedly. In other words, even if Nafa Twain mortgaged 30% of the restaurant's shares to Chen Zhao, if Nafa Twain's capital chain broke, the bank would have priority. Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to do anything then. At least in terms of legal means, Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to beat the bank. Of course, if the shares ended up in the bank's hands, it would be a good thing. The bank would definitely sell it to Chen Zhao first based on business principles. This was also because Chen Zhao's shares had clear ownership, and the bank needed funds. Another possibility was that the bank would find a professional manager to take over the business and run it for profit. However, usually, when an individual had absolute shares, the bank would not find a professional manager because Chen Zhao had absolute decision-making power. Even a stock god would not have the right to order Chen Zhao around. How much does Nafa Twain owe the bank? $230 million. Chen Zhao gasped. How does he owe so much money? Chapter 1300. Chen Zhao was a bit angry, because Nafa Twain had lied to him. He hadn't succeeded. But after thinking about it, Chen Zhao understood. So what if he lied to him? Did he have to take revenge? Nafa was probably in a terrible situation now. There was no need to add insult to injury. Nafa Twain was probably just trying his luck. He knew that the success rate wouldn't be high. Andrews, is the 30% shares of Maryland's restaurant mortgaged to your bank? Yes. If your bank wants to sell the shares, buy it for me immediately. As long as it's within 40% of the premium, you can help me buy it. Chen Zhao had the priority to buy the shares. Of course, if it was a high-quality property, the bank might keep it as a profitable investment. Chen Zhao didn't have to get the 30% shares. As long as it didn't fall into the hands of some random person, Chen Zhao didn't mind the bank owning the shares. The richer one was, the more cautious they were. If Rasfa, Stephen, Dell, or Risfar needed money, Chen Zhao would lend it to them without hesitation. Chen Zhao wouldn't ask how or when he would return it. He wouldn't even ask for interest. This was friendship. Of course, it was also trust. He trusted that they had the ability to return the money. Everyone would have times when they were short of money. Even Chen Zhao was no exception. But Chen Zhao wasn't familiar with Nafa Twain at all. From Andrew's words, Chen Zhao could basically tell that Nafa Twain wasn't an excellent capitalist. He didn't have the ability to manage his own assets. So Chen Zhao wouldn't lend him money. He didn't have two conditions. One was ability, and the other was friendship. Because he didn't have two conditions. One was ability, and the other was friendship. Mr. Chen, I heard that you've invested in a beer factory? Mr. Chen, I heard that you're building a beer factory. Are you the maker of the nameless wine in Mara Supermarket? You're the maker of Mara Supermarket's nameless wine? Andrews asked. Huh. How did you know? Chen Zhao was surprised. Because I heard that the maker of Daydream is going to build and produce a beer factory. Coincidentally, you're the one who built it. Hearing Andrew's words, Chen Zhao realized that Denver had probably started building up their momentum. The first bottle of beer hadn't even been produced yet, but Andrews was already promoting it impatiently. It had to be said that Denver moved quickly. Mr. Chen, do you need a bank loan? I think our bank will be happy to provide you with the best loan service. How famous were Daydream and the nameless wine? Daydream was the world's most famous wine, the most expensive wine. Even the value of Daydream had exceeded its price tag. Sacramento has become a tourist destination because of Daydreams. The number of tourists in the second half of last year was close to 8 million. This was already comparable to the number of tourists in the Hawaiian Islands. Tens of billions of dollars in tourism revenue to Sacramento. Tourism became the mainstay of Sacramento's economy. Daydream wasn't a billion-dollar wine, but a $100 billion wine. Who knew how many people would travel thousands of miles to Sacramento just to catch a glimpse of Daydream? To Mara Superstore. After the nameless wine was put on the shelves every month, it was sold out in an instant. This led to the rise of the nameless wine's reputation. Moreover, the nameless wine and Daydream were brewed by the same person, which further increased the nameless wine's fame and value. Even if the price of the nameless wine made it impossible for ordinary people to get it, this didn't mean that ordinary people wouldn't fantasize about the nameless wine. The beer that Chen Zhao had invested in hadn't started production yet, but everyone could see its potential. Everything else aside, just the fact that it was brewed by the world's best brewer was enough to attract attention. Andrew's intentions were also the bank's intentions. Did the bank lack money? What they lacked was projects. Customers like Chen Zhao were their favorite. Loans had low risk and stable returns. But customers like Chen Zhao were also the most troublesome. Chen Zhao didn't lack money. However, Andrews was an investment expert. Of course, he had more professional eyes than Chen Zhao. Mr. Chen, I know that your investment isn't big right now, but I believe that this time next year, your investment definitely won't be able to support the market demand. By then, you'll either lose your market share or lose the opportunity to take the lead. So, you better consider expanding production as soon as possible. Chen Zhao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They hadn't even started production yet. They hadn't even produced one bottle of beer, and Andrews was already considering expanding production. Wasn't that too much of a rush? However, Chen Zhao had to remember Andrew's words. He should ask Denver later to see what he thought. Of course, he couldn't borrow money for now. After the money entered his account, Chen Zhao's cash flow would probably be more than those large companies. For now, Chen Zhao wouldn't blindly expand production. Andrews obviously knew that he couldn't get Chen Zhao to take a loan with just a phone call. However, he was really anxious. Once the aged beer was successful in the market, he would be able to make a profit. Once Chen Zhao's beer succeeded in the market, there would definitely be more investors who would pay attention to Chen Zhao's brewery. They would definitely be willing to invest in Chen Zhao's brewery. After exchanging a few words with Andrews, Chen Zhao hung up. Fei Lai, do you want to go shopping? Chen Zhao asked. No, let's go home, Fei Lai said. On the way, Chen Zhao received a call from Ethan. Chen, there's a customer who offered $200,000. The address is Beverly Hills XXXX. Okay, I'll be there in half an hour. Chen Zhao first sent Fei Lai and Jerlin home. Then he drove to Beverly Hills. Ding dong, Chen Zhao pressed the doorbell. It wasn't a big villa. The owner probably wasn't a billionaire, but he was at least rich. Now, Chen Zhao could roughly estimate a person's wealth from their house. Hello, I'm a doctor. I heard that someone here needs treatment. A woman walked out from a small path in the villa. Chen Zhao could vaguely see that she had long hair and was wearing a mink nightgown. The woman stood at the metal door and looked at Chen Zhao. You're a doctor? Yes. Can I see your medical license? The woman looked very cautious. Huh? Chen Zhao chuckled. Do you need a proper doctor? The woman's smile was very beautiful. She opened the door. "Come in." Chen Zhao glanced at the woman. It was late, and she was already wearing a nightgown, but she still had foundation on. Chen Zhao couldn't see her complexion. Chen Zhao glanced at the woman. "It's bad for your skin if you don't remove your makeup at night." Chapter 1301. Any woman would know that not removing makeup at night was bad for their skin. It was even more impossible for a beautiful woman not to know this. "I'm Marcia Klaus. Are you a filmmaker?" Chen Zhao asked. "No, it's a TV show West," Marcia Klaus said. No wonder Chen Zhao didn't usually watch movies. Instead, he watched TV shows at home. That was why he felt that Marcia Klaus looked familiar. Chen Zhao also remembered which character Marcia Klaus was playing. However, Marcia Klaus looked a bit different from the character in West, so Chen Zhao couldn't recognize her immediately. Marcia Klaus led Chen Zhao into the living room. The villa wasn't small, but Marcia Klaus was the only person in it. It was obvious that Marcia Klaus was still wary of Chen Zhao. "Miss Marcia, is there anything I can do for you?" Just then Marcia Klaus pulled her hair down. Chen Zhao looked up. Damn, bald. Marcia Klaus was wearing a wig. She wasn't completely bald, but for a beauty like her, hair loss and baldness were definitely unbearable. Moreover, she was a female star. If her current look was spread, her previous look would be ruined. "Can you cure hair loss?" Chen Zhao looked at her. "I need you to wash off the foundation on your face." Chen Zhao needed to see Marcia Klaus' complexion to determine the cause of her hair loss. Normally, it was more likely that Marcia Klaus had a problem with her liver, which caused her detoxification to go haywire and hair loss. Marcia Klaus was hesitant. As a female star, she wouldn't show her bare face to anyone other than her close ones, not even her father. That was why she was hesitating. However, she only hesitated for a while. In the end, she stood up and went to the bathroom to remove her makeup. 10 minutes later, Marcia Klaus came out of the bathroom. Marcia Klaus' skin wasn't very good. There were some spots on her face, and her pores were large. She also had undeniable dark circles. In terms of age, Western women aged earlier than Eastern women. This was due to the difference in skin quality. She was already 30 years old, and had begun to enter the skin decay period. On the screen, there were always female stars in their 40s who were still sexy and enchanting, but that was the result of meticulous dressing. Besides, there were also a lot of manual surgeries and maintenance outside of the screen. Ordinary people would never be able to understand the price female celebrities had to pay for their beauty. Botox injections, dermabrasion, facelifts, laser spots removal. Female celebrities could sell their souls to the devil for their beauty. Of course, Marcia Klaus was still beautiful. This was her temperament and foundation, even if there were imperfections. "Has your schedule been messy lately? Are there any illegal things?" Chen Zhao asked. Marcia Klaus thought for a moment and nodded. Yes. Obviously, Marcia Klaus was poisoned. Of course, it wasn't that someone had poisoned her, but that there was a problem with her detoxification. Apart from the appendix, every organ in the human body was useful, even hair. The detoxification of the human body was mainly through the 5 viscera. The first detoxification was through the intestines and stomach. This was the organ that expelled most of the toxins. Then some of the toxins would enter the bloodstream. At this time, the liver and gallbladder would begin to detoxify the toxins produced by food that entered the bloodstream. But once there was a problem with the liver and gallbladder, the toxin processing system wouldn't work, and the toxins would return to the bloodstream. At this time, the body's hair would start to absorb the toxins. This was also the body's protective mechanism. The pores, on the other hand, would die due to the toxins, causing hair loss. Some people's pores were large and filth flowed out, because the hair follicles had absorbed the toxins from the body. Some could recover and continue growing through detoxification treatment. This was the so-called detoxification and beautification. Some people's hair follicles were seriously damaged. The cells had been poisoned to death and necrosis. This led to more serious hair loss. There was currently no way to treat this kind of hair loss. The only solution was hair transplant. "Your hair loss is more serious than I thought," Chen Zhao said. "Your hair follicles are necrotic. If you're going to repeat the diagnosis of the doctor in the hospital, then please leave my house. I heard that you're the best in the industry, so I asked you to come here. I need a solution, Marcia Klaus said. You're right. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes and stared at Marcia Klaus. Do you want a long-term treatment or a short-term one? Oh, you have a solution? Marcia Klaus' eyes brightened. You said it yourself. I'm the best in the industry. Chen Zhao shrugged. Up until now, none of the patients I've accepted have failed or died. Then tell me the difference between a long-term treatment and a short-term treatment. For the long-term treatment, I'll use acupuncture to help you detoxify and stimulate hair follicle cell regeneration, Chen Zhao said. It'll be 6 months and 12 treatments. Each treatment will cost $100,000. Of course, you can start paying when there's an effect. I believe in my ability and your credibility. What about the short-term treatment? I can give you thick hair in a week. At least, it won't be as bumpy as you are now, Chen Zhao said. In this week, I'll come every day. The total cost will be $2 million. You can pay after the treatment. However, because your hair follicle cells have died, there's a high chance that you'll lose your hair again. You might have to pay the same treatment next time. Of course, I'll solve the same problem for you for free in a year. After a year, you'll have to pay because the natural cycle of hair replacement is also a year. Can I do both long-term and short-term treatments at the same time? Marcia Klaus asked. She could accept paying $2 million at a time, but she couldn't afford it if she had to pay it once a year. She was a celebrity, but she wasn't a superstar. $2 million was still a huge expense for her. Chapter 1302. Long-term treatment was a conventional treatment. It relied on Chen Zhao's medical skills. This could not be sped up. Detoxification and treating liver damage was a long process. It was a problem that modern medicine could not solve, but Chen Zhao could solve it. However, he could not speed it up, at least not with conventional methods. If it was short-term treatment, Chen Zhao would have to use magic. This was not within the scope of conventional treatment. The two treatments could not be stacked. Marcia Klaus was in a difficult position. If it was long-term treatment, she would have to wear a wig for half a year. However, it was very risky for a female star to wear a wig in public. Of course, there was another solution, shaving her head. She could also tell the public that she would change her appearance and style. However, the problem was that she had not finished filming yet. There were still a few unfinished episodes of West. American dramas were usually filmed while they were being broadcast. The script might be changed halfway. If the ratings were not good, it might be cut off halfway. If she hastily changed her appearance, it was very likely that her character would directly die. However, West's ratings and online popularity were very high. She had also received many good reviews, and her popularity had skyrocketed. To her, she could not lose her role in West. Shaving her head was definitely not a good choice. So, she could only choose short-term treatment. If it's short-term treatment, how long can I grow in 7 days? Marcia Klaus asked. About your shoulders. In fact, Chen Zhao could let Marcia Klaus have long hair in an instant. But that would be too rash. So Chen Zhao planned to make her hair grow longer bit by bit. Chen Zhao's excuse was drug stimulation. Although I studied drama in university, I know common sense. Under normal circumstances, a person's hair can't grow so fast. Marcia Klaus indeed asked this question. I have special drugs and my acupuncture techniques. I can stimulate your scalp and make your hair grow into a buzz cut in one night. Can you make it longer? Yes, but add the fee, Chen Zhao said. $300,000 per treatment. I need short-term treatment. What do I need to do? Shave your head first, Chen Zhao said. Shave? Marcia Klaus's expression changed instantly. If Chen Zhao's treatment didn't work, wouldn't he have shaved his hair for nothing? Who would be responsible then? Should they ask this illegal doctor to compensate them? Whether you shave your head or not, you need to wear a wig. If the outside world sees your bald head, you might as well shave it. At least you can find an excuse to cover it up. Marcia Klaus hesitated for a long time, her eyes flickering. What if your treatment doesn't work? You're not the first hair loss patient I've treated, Chen Zhao said. Marcia Klaus bit her lower lip and thought about it, but still couldn't make up her mind. Will there be any side effects? I won't. All my patients have a 100% positive review, Chen Zhao said indifferently. I've never failed. Okay, I want short-term treatment, Marcia Klaus said. Do you want me to shave your hair? Or do you want to do it yourself? You do it. Marcia Klaus couldn't do it, even if her hair was full of holes. Marcia Klaus found a razor for Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao pressed on Marcia Klaus' head. Feeling the rustling on her head, Marcia Klaus was in a bad mood. Your abnormal hair loss has been going on for half a year, right? Yes. At first, I thought it was normal hair loss, but in the past 2 months it's been a bit excessive. Some parts are completely exposed. Chen Zhao quickly pushed all of Marcia Klaus' hair away. Feeling the cold wind on her head, Marcia Klaus' mood worsened. Luckily, she wasn't facing a mirror, or she would definitely go crazy. Then Chen Zhao started inserting silver needles into Marcia Klaus' head. Also, he applied some unknown potions on it. Actually, this short-term treatment was just for show. In reality, Chen Zhao still had to use the healing spell he'd learned from the handsome guy. This acupuncture was actually just a normal detoxification for Marcia Klaus. After half an hour, Chen Zhao started withdrawing the needles. Marcia Klaus asked, "Done? All right, you can reach out and touch your head." Marcia Klaus touched her head. Indeed, her hair had grown by around 1 centimeter. Had this guy really shaved off all his hair before? Marcia Klaus touched the part where she'd lost her hair. Indeed, hair had grown out. This was amazing. How did this man do it? She'd actually grown such long hair in such a short time. Marcia Klaus picked up the mirror and looked at it. Her hair was very short, only half an inch long. However, it was very dense, and the growth was gratifying. Mr. Chen, thank you for your treatment. No need. It's what I should do, Chen Zhao said calmly. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll come for the second treatment. I'll leave my number. If you're not home or don't have time, call me. Okay, wait a moment. I'll write you a check. Not now, Chen Zhao said. I said that after I finish the treatment, I'll pay in one go. Just then Chen Zhao's phone rang again. It was Kohler. Chen Zhao picked it up. Hey Chen, it's me. Kohler, you still remember me, right? Yes, I remember, Chen Zhao replied. What's up? Can you come to our team's training hall? Is there a problem? I can't talk over the phone. Chen Zhao looked at the time. It was only 8:10 at night. He wasn't late. Sure, I'll go. Chen Zhao glanced at Marcia Klaus. If there's nothing else, I'll go. I have another client. Okay, bye, Mr. Chen. Chen Zhao drove to the HR team's training hall. Coach Simpson was there too. Duba was lying on the ground, while Ruby sat on the bench with a towel over his head. Did they have another conflict? Chen Zhao wondered. Last time Simpson had come to find him, it was also because of a fight between Duba and Ruby. This time, it seemed that Duba's injuries were very serious. Seeing Chen Zhao, Kohler immediately walked up. Chen, you're here? Quick, take a look at Duba. He doesn't look good. When Simpson saw Chen Zhao, he nodded but didn't say anything. Chapter 1303. Chen Zhao nodded as a greeting to Simpson. He came to Duba's side and squatted down to check his injuries. Duba's injuries were quite serious, but they could be treated quickly. Is it Ruby? Chen Zhao tilted his head to look at Ruby, who was sitting nearby. Ruby kept her head down and didn't look at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't know if she was blaming herself or ignoring Duba's injuries. Duba, bear with the pain. Ah. As soon as Chen Zhao finished, Duba let out a pain cry. Accompanied by the sound of bones dislocating and colliding, Chen Zhao moved the dislocated bone back. Next time you fight, you can't touch this part unless you want to go to jail. Chen Zhao pointed at an inch below Duba's right ribs. Attack here. This is the liver, and it has the least fat. It can cause serious injuries. Chen Zhao explained as he spoke. Also, don't use your elbows when fighting. The skin and fat on the elbows are the least. It's like a blunt weapon, and can easily cause serious injuries or even death. If you don't have irreconcilable grudges, don't fight like this. Don't hit the heart either. It can easily cause cardiac arrest and death, Chen Zhao said. Simpson was speechless at Chen Zhao's teaching them how to fight. However, he also felt that it made sense. At least they would consider not causing serious injuries when they fought next time. Chen Zhao said all this because he was friends with them. However, they didn't have a deep friendship. So, Chen Zhao wasn't in the position to stop them from fighting. Okay, Duba, Chen Zhao said. You need to rest for 3 days. Don't do any intense exercise for 3 days. Chen, thank you. How much? Forget it this time. Last time, Ruby and Kohler went to give a lesson to the players of my school's basketball club. Let's just treat this consultation fee as compensation. Chen Zhao packed his tools. Duba, this medicine is for internal consumption. Soak it in water every day. Duba propped himself up. His abdomen still hurt a bit, but it wasn't as painful as before. Duba, how are you? Simpson asked. I feel much better. It doesn't hurt as much anymore, Duba said. Chen, come be our HR team's doctor. Simpson looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao smiled. How much can you give me? This. The team doctor needed to be with the HR team every time they competed. A few dozen matches in a season. According to Chen Zhao's current medical fees, the HR team would have to pay Chen Zhao millions of dollars. As for the HR team's current team doctor, his annual salary didn't exceed $100,000. The cost of the entire team of doctors would not exceed $300,000. Don't even think about it. I'll only show you once or twice at most. It's impossible for me to follow the team. Chen Zhao packed up his toolbox and got up to leave. Simpson walked Chen Zhao to the door. Chen Zhao was only friends with them, so he didn't plan to mediate their conflict. He wasn't in the position to do so either. The next day, an uninvited guest came to Chen Zhao's house. Dell brought Faith over, and Faith started playing with Jerlin as soon as she arrived. Chun, Dell said. Master said that my magic has improved. He wants you to choose a suitable spell for me. What kind of spell do you want to learn? How's your Chingy Cloud? Dell shook his head. I've learned Chingy Cloud, but it's too weak. Chen Zhao thought about it. The incantation for Chingy Cloud wasn't difficult. It was a basic spell of the Chingy sect, but Chingy Cloud's effects depended on the strength of the cultivator's magic. When Chen Zhao had learned Chingy Cloud, he couldn't even block bullets. It was like covering his skin with a layer of rubber. And with Dell's current mana, he probably didn't even have 40 mana. He probably wouldn't even be able to cover his entire body with Green Robe's cloud. Master said that the Chingy sect has many different spells. I'm suitable for a lightning spell. Lightning spell? Chen Zhao hadn't come across such spells before. Li Qing had let Chen Zhao take care of the Chingy sect's records, not only because of their friendship, but also because Chen Zhao had the ability to protect them. If they were handed over to Dell for safekeeping, he wouldn't have the ability to protect them once Dell exposed the books in his hands, and people with ill intentions coveted them. Chen Zhao took out the Chingy sect's records and let Dell flip through them. Look at it yourself. Tell me which one you like. Li Qing wanted Chen Zhao to teach Dell. If Dell learned it himself, he probably wouldn't be able to learn it in a long time. Dell flipped through the books and found a book called Dragonfly Skimming the Water. Chen Zhao hadn't learned this spell before, but it didn't mean he couldn't learn it now. The spell was really useless to Chen Zhao right now. It was really useless. To put it simply, it was just a Qinggong spell. Chen Zhao could already fly in the air now. Why would he need Qinggong? But to Dell, it was very suitable. Chen Zhao read it a few times and memorized the incantation. After going through it in his head, he'd more or less learned it. It was like a university professor reading a primary school textbook, even if he hadn't read it before. But with a university professor's comprehension, it was impossible for him not to understand the contents of a primary school textbook. But to Chen Zhao, Dell was a primary school student. No, a kindergarten student. I'll demonstrate. Watch. Dell put down the book at once and looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao walked to the lakeside and used the incantation. He leaped 4 or 5 meters into the air, spread his arms, and glided forward for more than 20 meters. Dell's eyes glowed. To him, this action was too graceful, like something out of a movie. Chen Zhao tapped on the surface of the water again. Then he leaped and glided for another 20 meters. After circling the lake, Chen Zhao returned to Dell. Do you want to try? The key is the water, but with your current magic, it's probably too difficult. You can try on land first. No, I want water. Del looked at Chen Zhao stubbornly. Alright, you can give it a try. Del took a few steps back, then sprinted towards the lake. But the moment his toes touched the surface of the lake, his whole body sank into the water. Wow, Del spat out some water. Why didn't it light up? I don't believe it. Let me try again. Dad, you're so dumb. Faith saw Del's actions. I learned it all. Chapter 1304. Del's eyes widened. Chen Zhao also looked at Faith in surprise. However, Fisher fell into the water after using it once and couldn't sustain the mana consumption for a second time. Little Jerlin watched from the side. She tilted her head in confusion. Chen Zhao had to admit that Faith's talent surprised him. After all, Faith didn't even know the incantation. Just from Chen Zhao's demonstration, she could use 70% of it. Chen Zhao looked at Faith and then at Del. Del's face was bright red. He climbed out of the water with his wet clothes. Faith was almost 2 years old. She was much taller than little Jerlin. Logically speaking, the two requirements to become a spiritualist were either the tribulation of life and death, or a natural bloodline. But Faith was neither. She didn't have a natural bloodline, or a tribulation of life and death, but she just had magic. Chen Zhao suspected that he'd used the pristine eyeball to replace Faith's original eyes, and the pristine eyeball had mutated, giving Faith magic. But normal people could only gain vision with the pristine eyeball. Only a special bloodline could make the pristine eyeball mutate. This meant that Faith probably had a special bloodline. It hadn't been awakened yet, but the pristine eyeball had still changed in her. But Faith was still too young. Her magic was very weak. Del and Faith stayed until the night. They didn't leave until after dinner. As for the dragonfly's touch on the water, Del couldn't learn it no matter what. Faith, how did you learn the pristine eyeball? Del asked as he drove. I can see the magic flowing in Uncle Chen's body. Faith, who was sitting in the passenger seat, replied. You can see it. Yes, Faith said, pointing at her eyes. Del remembered that Faith had been born blind, but she'd recovered her vision because of Chen Zhao's treatment. Was it because of Chen Zhao's treatment that Faith's vision could see more than normal people? Then you can see Dad's magic too, right? Yes, I can. The magic in Dad's body is like a little earthworm. What about your Uncle Chen? Faith can't see everything. She can only see Uncle when he uses magic. But Uncle is definitely stronger than you, because when he uses magic, he has several times more magic than you do. It's like there's a snake the size of Raymond flowing through your body. Del pouted. Okay, your Uncle Chen is the best, okay? Where's your own magic, Faith? My mana is also a little earthworm, Faith said with a pout. Chen Zhao, on the other hand, started looking through Qingyi sex books at home. He wanted to see if there were any spells that were suitable for him, and that he had missed out on. Starting from Shangliu Qingyi, the Green Robe sect had been passed down for 1,000 years. After dozens of generations, it didn't just leave behind Shangliu Qingyi's techniques. There were also many techniques left behind by the later sages. Many of these techniques were similar or similar. Most of them were useless to him, at least not in actual combat. There was another important reason why Chen Zhao had accepted Li Qing's request to look after the Qingyi sex records. Many of the Qingyi sex spells could be used in medicine. This was also the type that Chen Zhao was most interested in. Some of the Qingyi sex spells were also very similar to Chen Zhao's own abilities. For example, the advanced version of needle thread, countless threads, could turn the thin strands of magic into thousands of strands and spread them out. They could restrain or kill the enemy directly. However, this spell was similar to dark lava. The difference was that dark lava could be seen, while countless threads was made of magic and couldn't be seen. Countless threads wasn't completely useless. For example, it could control certain things, such as sword riding. The effect was similar to rhythmic sword riding. It could be said to be a weaker version of it. Rhythmic sword riding could allow the weapons Chen Zhao controlled to have close to his own speed and attack power. However, the weapons controlled by countless threads weren't as powerful. After all, weapons controlled by magic strands couldn't have tens, or even hundreds of tons of destructive power when swung. Chen Zhao suddenly felt that countless threads wasn't so useless. At least it was very good at group attacks. Chen Zhao felt that countless threads' control of weapons far exceeded rhythmic sword riding. If he controlled 1,000 swords and released them at the same time, he could indeed have a group attack effect. Moreover, what Chen Zhao lacked the most was group attacks. Chen Zhao entered the river map to find Old Turtle. Old Turtle, help me get 1,000 stone swords. Your rhythmic sword riding can control 1,000 stone swords. It's not rhythmic sword riding. I thought of another move. Chen Zhao told Old Turtle his idea. But this way, the power of a single sword will be far weaker than rhythmic sword riding. I know. This move isn't for a single powerful enemy. It's for a large number of enemies. Okay. Old Turtle made 1,000 stone swords for Chen Zhao. For Old Turtle, it was a piece of cake. Soon, 1,000 stone swords were placed before Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao started using countless threads. Magic strands wrapped around the swords and lifted them. But some swords were lifted and some fell. It was too difficult to lift 1,000 stone swords neatly, let alone control them to attack the enemy. Chen Zhao tried again. It was the same situation. Chen Zhao's control was far from being able to control 1,000 stone swords at the same time. After dozens of attempts, Chen Zhao finally lifted 1,000 stone swords at the same time. But the effect wasn't good. The 1,000 stone swords collided with each other. Before they even attacked, they started fighting each other. Old Turtle looked at Chen Zhao with interest. He didn't give any advice. To Old Turtle, Chen Zhao was like a kid in kindergarten. Chen Zhao wasn't discouraged. He just had this idea. For Chen Zhao, he couldn't use any spell right away. It was just a concept, an immature concept. A spell that matched one's abilities had to be tried dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of times. He was constantly improving, and at the same time, he was constantly in the process of familiarizing himself with it. Chen Zhao didn't expect to succeed in a few tries. Chen Zhao planned to get used to lifting 1,000 stone swords with countless threads first. The rest would come later. Lift, put down. Chen Zhao kept practicing these two movements. If 10 wasn't enough, he would do 100. If 100 wasn't enough, he would do 1,000. If 1,000 wasn't enough, he would do 10,000. Chapter 1305. Compared to the Demon God Canon, or spell Return to 1, Connections was much more difficult than the first two. Of course, this spell couldn't be called Innumerable Threads. It should be regarded as an advanced version of Innumerable Threads. Chen Zhao hadn't thought of a name yet. He would only consider giving it a new name after he completed it. He hadn't succeeded yet. It was just a prototype. To lift 1,000 stone swords at the same time, Chen Zhao tried 50 times. Then he tried 500 times to make 1,000 stone swords float in the air at the same time, without interfering with each other. Then he had to control 1,000 stone swords to attack. However, it was even more difficult to control 1,000 stone swords to attack. 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, it was too difficult. Every time the 1,000 stone swords moved, they would collide and interfere with each other. Chen Zhao, why don't you reduce the number of stone swords? It'll be much easier. That's boring, Chen Zhao said. If I reduce the number of swords, my ideal group attack effect will be greatly reduced. If it couldn't achieve the group attack effect Chen Zhao wanted, the spell would be useless. Old Turtle didn't try to persuade him anymore. Chen Zhao continued practicing the new spell. Again. He repeated the same process again and again. In the next few days, Chen Zhao went in and out of the river map. Every time, he would stay in the river map for more than 10 days. This was the spell that Chen Zhao practiced the most. Chen Zhao didn't know how many times he'd practiced it, but he still hadn't succeeded. He still couldn't make all the stone swords point in the same direction. To achieve his goal, he needed the stone swords to attack more widely and move more complicated. Chen, I think we should consider the feng shui of our new home. Fei Lai looked at Chen Zhao seriously. Darling, the project is almost finished. It's not suitable to change it, Chen Zhao said perfunctorily. No need. We just need to make some adjustments. For example, our original plan was to plant a row of palm trees. Now we'll plant 2 rows of crepe myrtle. What crepe myrtle? Chen Zhao was confused. As a Chinese, you don't know about crepe myrtle? Chen Zhao was helpless. He wasn't a botanist. Chen Zhao only knew about the ziwei from Return of the Pearl. He didn't know about such a plant. Crepe myrtle is also known as purple gold flower and purple orchid. In China, crepe myrtle is also known as mantang red. It is an extremely expensive flower, meaning that wealth and honor fill the house. In feng shui shua, crepe myrtle is also known as family court crepe myrtle, which means wealth and honor fill the house. Alright, you decide. In terms of feng shui, Chen Zhao really couldn't win against Fei Lai. Originally, we planned to plant redwood trees on both sides of the road leading to the villa. Now we'll change it to a grassland and plant an oak tree on the left. It's best if it's an adult oak tree, at least 100 years old. So it's best to find a 100-year-old oak tree now and transplant it to our new home. What's the meaning of the oak tree? In America, the oak tree is the national tree. In the East, it's also a symbol of good luck. In ancient times, the oak tree was the main beam of a palace. It has to be more than 100 years old to bear the main beam of a palace. The wood is sturdy and heavy. The big ones can be the main beam, while the small ones can be the firewood. The beam bears the weight of the world, and bears the weight of the world. The firewood burns the light and illuminates the air. The oak tree is majestic and bears the burden of a pillar. Chen Zhao was stunned by Fei Lai's words. He knew that Fei Lai's Chinese had improved by leaps and bounds during this time. However, he didn't expect Fei Lai's Chinese to have reached this level. Anyway, Chen Zhao was speechless from her words. Then I'll go and see if there's a suitable oak tree to transplant. There were quite a few oak trees in the forest around Mirror Lake, but they weren't old. The oldest was probably only 20 years old. Plant a few more pomegranate trees. Pomegranate trees have the meaning of having more children and blessings in both the East and West. Okay, I'll do as you say. In a classroom at the University of Los Angeles, the lecturer was lecturing non-stop on the podium. At this moment, a soldier in military uniform came to the classroom and knocked on the door. Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt your class, but we need 2 students to cooperate with us. Soldier, this is a university. Are you going to arrest my students? The lecturer asked with a frown. No, I'm not arresting you. In America, soldiers didn't have the right to arrest people. The officer held 2 photos in his hands. Ms. Westana, can you come with me? Li Mu and Westana glanced at each other surprised. They vaguely remembered this officer. They seemed to have seen him before. It was in Alaska's Toda Snowy Mountains. When the military had been in control, the 2 had been left in that area. Just then the lecturer said, Li Westana, you have the right to refuse. The 2 stood up. Li Mu said, Sir, we're fine. We know this colonel. Li Mu and Westana walked out of the classroom. Li Mu asked, Colonel, we meet again. How can I help you? Ms. Westana, since we've met before, I won't beat around the bush. The military needs 2 professionals to join our team. You mean you want us to join the army? The 2 were surprised. They were obviously not qualified soldiers. They really didn't understand why the colonel wanted them. Not to join the army, but to be a military doctor, the colonel said. We're still students. Yes, I know, but I think you can be trusted. After you left last time, you didn't leak any military secrets. In fact, after the 2 were allowed to leave, the military had been closely monitoring their movements to make sure they didn't leak any military secrets. Did we come across any military secrets last time? Maybe not. Anyway, your performance is trustworthy. That's why I'm looking for you again, the colonel said. Then what can we get? Freedom. You won't be restricted by your studies. At the same time, I can guarantee that you'll get a degree. Also, you'll receive great benefits while you're enlisted. Of course, we'll also guarantee your safety. Will this mission be dangerous? There's a certain degree of danger. Of course, your mission isn't to take risks, but to treat injured soldiers. Li Mu and Westana's eyes lit up. They were both very active and adventurous girls. Are we going to the battlefield? Li Mu asked. No, it's in Alaska's Toda Snowy Mountains, the border with the United States, the colonel said. Chapter 1306. It was Li Mu and Westana's first time taking a military plane. On this military transport plane, there were more than a dozen fully armed soldiers. Of course, they were not there to guard Li Mu and Westana. Instead, they were sent to the Tawa Snow Mountain just like them. "Hi, two beautiful ladies, may I know your names?" A soldier started a conversation, and the atmosphere in the cabin quickly became lively. "I'm Matthew from Howard Air Force Base in Southern California." "I'm Sauter from the Pacific Fleet." Li Mu and Westana realized that the soldiers were not from the same place, but from different military units. At that moment, Colonel Mansari, who invited Li Mu and Westana, came out of the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, you'd better put on your coats. We're approaching Canadian airspace." Hearing that, everyone put on their coats. Soon they felt the cold air enter the cabin. Fortunately, the plane began to descend soon after. The military plane landed at an unfamiliar military airport. This place was covered in white snow, and the surroundings were all snowy. There was no greenery in sight. "Is this the Tawa Snow Mountain?" Li Mu asked. "Not yet. We're about 130 kilometers away from the Tawa Snow Mountain," Colonel Mansari said. Soon, Colonel Mansari found a few military SUVs, and everyone boarded them. After a bumpy ride, they finally arrived at a small town at the foot of the Tawa Snow Mountain. Li Mu and Westana had been here before. The Tawa Snow Mountain was originally a ski resort, but now there was not a single person in sight. Even the town was empty. Li Mu and Westana looked at each other, surprised by the change in the place. The last time they came here, there were still many residents in the town. Why was there not a single person now? The car arrived at another base. Li Mu and Westana had been to this base before. They had been locked up here for a month. There were not many people in this base, and a few soldiers were familiar with them. After all, they had stayed here for a month. But after more than 3 months, looking at these soldiers now, they were a little dispirited. They did not have a good time here. Mansari assigned the new soldiers to their respective rooms, then said to Li Mu and Westana, "You will be here for 3 months. And these 3 months will be very boring. Mr. Colonel, you've said it before, and we're already mentally prepared. All right, your job is mainly to treat injured or sick patients," Mansari said. "Also, no one lives within a radius of 300 kilometers, so try not to go out, especially at night. Do not go out, got it?" "Of course. I remember that there were quite a few residents in this town. Where are they now?" "It has been relocated," Mansari said. "Also, according to the weather report, there will be a snowstorm here tonight. I hope you won't catch a cold. In addition, no matter what you see or hear in the future, it will be a military secret and must not be leaked." Before the two women came, they had been warned many times not to leak anything they saw or heard. Just as Mansari said, at night, the wind began to howl outside. Li Mu was sleeping soundly when suddenly, there was a commotion outside. Li Mu rubbed her eyes and got up. She saw light outside the window. It was a machine gun. Soldiers were fighting outside. However, because the wind and snow outside were too heavy, Li Mu couldn't see who they were fighting with. He could only see the soldiers outside firing at the snowstorm. Li Mu was shocked. The battle outside lasted for more than half an hour. Suddenly, there was a hurried knock on the door. At the same time, Mansari's voice came. "Miss Li, open the door." Li Mu hesitated for a moment, but still opened the door. "Colonel, what's the matter? You and Westana's work has begun. There are soldiers who need your treatment." "Okay, please wait a moment." Li Mu quickly put on her coat and followed Mansari to the infirmary. This was not Li Mu's first time in the infirmary. Back when she and Westana were detained here, she had also treated the soldiers here. Westana had already arrived. When Li Mu came in, she saw Westana treating a soldier. The soldier's shoulder seemed to be bitten by something, and the injury was very serious. "Li, help me get some tranquilizers and painkillers," Westana said anxiously. Li Mu and Westana began to give the soldier first aid. Although the infirmary was not big, it was equipped with all kinds of equipment. The two's academic performance was relatively average, but their practical ability was good. The first aid lasted for half an hour. Finally, Li Mu stitched up the wound. Li Mu and Vestana's bodies and faces were covered in blood. Just as the two were catching their breath, another soldier was pushed in. This soldier's thigh was injured. It also looked like he was bitten by something. Because the wound touched the main artery, the injury was very serious. For a moment, the two women were in a panic. The patient's body temperature is abnormal. Why is it so high? Is it inflammation? No, it can't be so fast. Anti-inflammatory medicine. No, we have to cool him down as soon as possible. Use physical cooling. I'll go get some snow outside, Vestana said. As soon as Vestana left the infirmary, she was stopped by Mansari. Where are you going? I need some snow to cool down the patient. Don't go. Go back inside. But I'll get it for you, Mansari said. Vestana saw Mansari loading his gun as he walked out. It did not look like he was going out, but more like he was going to the battlefield. After a few minutes, Mansari came back with a bucket of ice and snow. Vestana and Li Mu saw that when Mansari put his gun on the table, there was smoke on it. He seemed to have used it just now. After the two women's rescue, the soldier was out of danger. Then Mansari handed the two women a gun each. What are you doing? Chapter 1307. The two women were shocked by Mansari's words. We're students and doctors here, not killers, Vestana said angrily. So if you can't do it, you can inform us, Mansari said. Why? Mansari did not say anything in the face of the two women's interrogation. Since we're already here, can't you just tell us the truth? You called us here because you trust us, right? It's not because I trust you, Mansari said calmly. It's because you're easier to control. The two women were obviously displeased by his words. I hope you can come and leave safely within 3 months. Maybe we will evacuate in less than 3 months. Before that, you'd better stay in this base and don't leave. 3 months later, I'll ask the military to change your files and information, and you'll get a generous bonus. If anything happens to you, all your records will disappear, and your corpses may not even return to your family. So please remember my advice and don't leave the headquarters. There's also the first aid rule. If your body temperature exceeds 42 degrees Celsius, and it doesn't drop in 15 minutes, shoot the wounded. What if it's you? Same. The sound of gunfire outside continued until dawn before it stopped. Vestana and Li Mu dragged their weary bodies and laid down on the bed again. At noon, they were woken up by the roar outside. It wasn't the sound of fighting but trucks. A large number of supplies and ammunition were being transported to the base. The base felt like a fortress. 10 new soldiers arrived at the same time. Li, don't you think it's strange here? Are you talking about the 2 injured soldiers? Li Mu looked at Vestana. They were both bitten. The wounds are very deep. The creature that bit them has incredible strength, and their wounds will quickly cause their bodies to heat up. Usually, if the wound was infected and caused inflammation, the disease would only take place after 12 hours. However, the soldier who was injured last night showed symptoms of high temperature in just 10 minutes. His body temperature was over 40 degrees. This kind of temperature was very scary. It was hard to reach such a high temperature for normal diseases. What puzzled them the most was Colonel Mansari's request. If the patient's body temperature reached 42 degrees Celsius and did not cool down within 15 minutes, they would shoot the patient. The knowledge they had learned in school had never taught them this rule. This was absolutely contrary to their medical knowledge and morals. Tell me, what kind of creature could cause such a wound? There should be North American gray wolves and brown bears living nearby. Brown bears don't live in packs. Only North American gray wolves live in packs. The intense gunfight last night could only have been a battle with a pack species. A single individual couldn't have caused such a serious exchange of fire. Li Mu said, it could have been a large wolf pack. A large wolf pack. How big do you think it is? In the world, North America has the largest number of wolves. However, the largest population was found in the grasslands of Inner Mongolia in Asia in 1976. A population of 180 wolves was found. Is there really such a large wolf pack? Vestana asked in surprise. However, in modern society, it is impossible for a wolf pack to reach such a scale. This has to do with their range of activities. They have their own territory, and the amount of food in their territory determines the size of their pack. If there is a large herd of deer in their territory, then the number of wolves will increase, and vice versa. Asian wolves mainly live in grasslands or deserts, and the number of wolf packs on the grasslands is also the largest. This is because the number of bison, sheep, and wild horses on the grasslands is large enough to support their food needs. However, it is very difficult to find such a super wolf pack in recent times. In historical records, there were once a super wolf pack with thousands of wolves. Then do you think there are wolves outside the base? Maybe. That's the most likely possibility, Limu said. But if it's a wolf pack, it shouldn't be a secret, right? How would I know? Hello, Mr. West. Hi, I'm Osalisa. West didn't expect Osalisa to take the initiative to contact him. But judging from Osalisa's tone, it didn't seem like she was informing him. Instead, it seemed like she was communicating with him on official business. Hello, Ms. Osalisa. What can I do for you? West asked calmly. It's like this. Mr. Leon contacted me and asked me to contact the supernatural organization. He hopes you can cooperate with the military. Military? We don't participate in military operations. West frowned. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up now. West hung up. 10 minutes later, West's phone rang again. It was an unfamiliar number. West picked it up. Hello, I'm Osalisa. What is it? West didn't waste time and went straight to the point. Leon should be retiring soon, Osalisa said. What does this have to do with what you just said to me? I don't know the specifics of this operation, but I know that Leon's successor is from the military. Leon wants to retire peacefully, so he's bringing the organization and the military together. West thought about it. Then what's the successor's attitude toward the supernatural organization? The successor is still in the military. He doesn't know about the supernatural organization at all, Osalisa said. Osalisa said, so my suggestion is to take the initiative and let the new head of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department know about the existence of the supernatural organization and the value of its existence. Also, after Leon retires, I should leave the Anti-Terrorism Security Department. Does this matter to you? West asked. On the other end of the phone, Osalisa hesitated for a moment and said, this is related to whether or not I will be punished because of Leon. If Leon can retire safely, I can too. If he is punished, I'm afraid I will also. Chapter 1308. That was why Osalisa had joined the supernatural organization. Leong was the head of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department. Osalisa had been his assistant for 5 years. It could be said that she knew all the secrets that Leong knew, so her situation wasn't much better than Leang's. This kind of political struggle was the cruelest. Leang's enemies would also include Osalisa in the scope of their revenge. West's heart was heavy as well. The Anti-Terrorism Security Department was the superior department of the supernatural organization in name, and also the source of funding. Many of the supernatural organization's actions also needed the support of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department. He didn't have a good relationship with Leong, but Leong also knew the supernatural organization's importance. So Leong wouldn't purposely make things difficult for the supernatural organization. At least after the last conflict, the supernatural organization and the Anti-Terrorism Security Department had always minded their own business. Now that Leong had retired, an unknown head had taken over. What would happen to the relationship between the two? West immediately contacted Chun Zhao. President, Leong is going to retire from the Anti-Terrorism Security Department. Oh, it's best if that old asterisk shoal scram. Chun Zhao still hadn't realized the severity of the problem. Leong might be asshole, but at least he knows the value of our organization. If a new person takes over, our days won't be so good. Do you have a way to make Leong stay? Chun Zhao asked. No, I can't interfere with a change in position like this. That's why I said, since we can't intervene, there's no need to worry about it. That old bastard is so old, and sooner or later, he will be like this. As for the new minister, we can't control his attitude, So we should prepare for the worst first. If the new head is determined to get rid of us, we'll find our own way, our own sponsors, or our own livelihood. We won't starve to death anyway. Chen Zhao actually knew that it would be harmful if the organization became a private organization. Once it became a private force, the other party might make many requests that they couldn't refuse, or even kill people. This was completely different from the original purpose of the supernatural organization's existence. Even idling around was better than being an assassin. The supernatural organization was there to solve supernatural incidents, not to become a dagger in someone's hand. President, it's not like there's no chance at all. It's said that the new director of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department is a member of the military, and he's currently dealing with a special case. Leong wants us to take the initiative to contact the new director and show him our value. I believe that when the time comes, the new director will not make things difficult for us after seeing our ability. After Mansari hung up the phone with Leong, he picked up the phone and dialed another number. He realized that he'd been kept in the dark. He'd been dealing with this incident for so long, but he didn't know the truth at all. He didn't even know as much as an outsider. This made Mansari very unhappy. Through his contacts in the military, Mansari found some inside information. Just as Leon said, the incident at Toda Snow Mountain last November wasn't the first time. In fact, in the past 50 years, Toda Snow Mountain had been locked down 9 times. Each time, they used avalanches as an excuse to lock down tourists who came to ski. But this time it was the most serious. Even the residents of the town at the foot of the mountain had to move. However, Mansari's friends in the military couldn't find any more information. Chapter 1309. When Mansari came to the dining room, he saw Li Mu and Vestana sitting at the table. They had only been here for 4 days, but they were bored to death. They had been detained for a month last time, but at least they could play with their phones. But this time, even their phones were confiscated. Mansari took the food and walked to the 2 girls. "Can I sit here? Do we have the right to object?" "You're our commander," Li Mu said unhappily. "You sound like you're complaining. You don't trust us," Li Mu said straightforwardly. "Since when do I not trust you? You confiscated our phones. Are you afraid we'll leak information?" "That's the rule, not mine." Mansari sat down. "It's not just you. Every soldier here doesn't have a phone. In the entire base, there's only one phone to contact the outside world." Just then a soldier ran in. "Commander, there are 2 people outside. They say they're from a subordinate department of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department." "Huh, that fast." Mansari stood up. "Bring him to my office." Mansari stood up and went to the office. He saw a man at the door. He wasn't a soldier, but the man's aura definitely came from a military camp. Klaus glanced at Mansari, but didn't say anything. He retracted his gaze and leaned against the wall. When Mansari opened the door, he saw an old man in his 60s. There was still some snow on him. It seemed that he had braved the snow to come to the base. West turned and saw Mansari. He immediately stood up. "Hello, Colonel Mansari. I'm West from the Supernatural Organization." Mansari shook hands, but his attitude was cold. Mansari walked to his chair and sat down. He looked at West. "Are you pledging your loyalty to me in advance?" Mansari's tone was mocking. West smiled at Mansari. "Colonel Mansari, I think you're mistaken. I just hope that you can give us fair treatment after you become the head of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department. That's all. Are you suspecting that I won't be fair?" Mansari's aggressive attitude annoyed West a little, but West said patiently, "Because the supernatural organization isn't easily accepted. I hate it when people pretend to be mysterious. I hate scammers. I don't think the Anti-Terrorism Security Department needs a bunch of liars." "Liar? Colonel Mansari, do you think we're liars?" West finally couldn't hold back his anger, and his tone carried a hint of anger. "Am I not clear enough?" Mansari looked at West calmly. "When I became the head of the Anti-Terrorism Department, the first thing I did was disband the so-called supernatural organization." West took a deep breath. "Leon once wanted to do that, But he compromised with us. Do you want to know why? Colonel Mansari. I'm not that kind of coward, Mansari said. I've been on a battlefield, a real one. You can deny us, but you have no right to disband us. Leong doesn't have that right, and neither do you. Our president once made Leong lower his proud head. I'm telling you now, you'll regret it. You'll lower your head to us, I promise. West stood up and slammed his hands on Mansari's desk. I've been there too. The supernatural organization has been through a war. It was a war far worse than what you know. I won't lower my head to a bunch of scammers. Never. Get out of here. I don't welcome you here. West turned and left the office. He walked to the door and spoke to Klaus in a low voice. Wait. Mansari walked to the door. Is there anything else? West turned to look at Mansari. I suspect that they have stolen our confidential documents. I want you to be searched, Mansari said. Men search them. Klaus looked at West, and West took a deep breath. Let them search. 2 soldiers came over and began a full-body examination of West and Klaus. West didn't have anything on him, but they found a gun and a military knife on Klaus. Sir, other than the gun and knife, they didn't search for confidential documents. Mansari knew this would be the result. He was just using the opportunity to make things difficult for them. He was just annoyed with them. Give him back the gun, Mansari said. At the same time he looked at Klaus. You look like a real soldier. Why don't you work for me? Our boss doesn't like traitors, Klaus said calmly. Also, you don't have the right. Your boss, the so-called chairman of the supernatural organization? Mansari sneered at Klaus and West. Can we go now? West asked. Yes. I hope you won't humiliate yourselves next time. I don't care about our rudeness, but you better not be rude to our chairman. He doesn't have a good temper. He won't listen to you. I'm looking forward to meeting your chairman. Let's go. West and Klaus left the base. Mr. West, that guy seems to be very hostile toward us, Klaus said. People from the military are all the same, West said calmly. They all have an attitude of distrust and suspicion. I'm also from the military, Klaus said, speechless. If it was you back then, would you believe in supernatural things? Well, Klaus hesitated for a long time. Indeed, Klaus had been a firm believer in materialism. Back then, he had only believed in the gun in his hand and the teammates behind him. Ignorant people are always so arrogant, West said. But that guy humiliated you like that. Can you take it? What should we do? Kill them all? West suddenly stopped. We seem to have guests. Klaus held a gun in one hand and a knife in the other. In the wind and snow, a few figures could be seen. It's such a big snowstorm, West complained. Why can't these guys stay at home and warm themselves? Why do they have to come out and cause trouble? This is too much. They don't understand the elderly at all. Mr. West, I don't have many bullets. There aren't many of them. As long as you don't waste bullets and shoot one at a time, you can still kill them all. Chapter 13:10. Sir, we heard gunshots in the blizzard. Oh, Mansari frowned. Were those 2 attacked? Send someone to check the situation. If they're not dead, drag them back. After a while the soldier ran back. Sir, we didn't find any traces of those 2 at the scene. There are only 12 of those things' bodies. 12? Mansari's eyes widened. Are you sure? Did they have strong firepower? That makes sense. If they weren't prepared, they wouldn't have dared to come here. Sir, the 12 monsters' fatal wound was in their heads. Each of them was shot in the head by a 0.8mm pistol. That's the number of bullets in a CZ-75 pistol. Impossible. Mansari immediately denied. Pistols can't hit those things, not to mention 1 bullet for one. Also, their skin can't be penetrated by small caliber firearms. The bullets went through their eyeballs, the soldier said. Mansari's pupils contracted. All 12 monsters? Yes, we've checked their bodies. Suddenly, intense gunshots came from outside. Mansari immediately rushed out of the door. Another fierce battle ensued outside the base. The soldiers who had been stationed in front of the defensive structure outside kept shooting at the snowstorm. Figures were moving in the blizzard. The soldiers began to fire wildly, and threw grenades from time to time. Da-da-da! Boom! Mansari jumped in front of a machine gun and fired into the blizzard. But at that moment, a figure broke through the hail of bullets and jumped into the fortification. It was a giant white wolf. Its body length was more than 3 meters, and it definitely weighed more than 200 kilograms. The white wolf pounced on the soldier closest to it. The other soldiers immediately fired at the white wolf. The white wolf's body was covered in blood, but it didn't fall. It continued to bite the soldier below it. Boom! The soldier pulled the grenade, and with a loud bang, the white wolf was sent flying. The soldier was also killed. Mansari's expression didn't look too good, but the battle continued, and he didn't have time to mourn the dead soldier. At that moment, the base's door opened. Limu and Vestana heard the commotion and came out to check on the situation. However, when he saw the corpse of the giant white wolf on the ground, he was shocked. "What are you doing out here? Go back inside." At this time, the battle was very fierce. The sound of wind and snow mixed with the sound of gunfire. Suddenly, a snow-white figure broke through the blockade and charged in. This white figure wasn't a wolf. Or more accurately, it wasn't completely a wolf. He was a size smaller than the white wolf he had killed earlier. He was about 2 meters tall, and he was standing upright. A word popped up in Limu and Vestana's minds: werewolves. The werewolves were too fast. Even at close range, it was difficult to hit them. Moreover, the werewolf would only stagger a few steps after being hit. It wouldn't cause any fatal damage. Mansari's reaction was extremely fast. She raised the shotgun beside her and locked onto the werewolf's head. Bang! The werewolf's head was blasted open and immediately fell to the ground in a bloody mess. However, the werewolf was not completely dead. Mansari fired another shot at the werewolf. The battle lasted for half an hour. Limu and Vestana watched as the soldiers dragged the dead soldier's body inside and cleaned up the battlefield. Other than the white wolf and the werewolf that had charged into the blockade, there were also a few white wolf corpses outside the blockade. "Mr. Mansari, can you tell us what's going on? Since you already saw it, why bother asking?" Mansari's expression was not good. After all, a soldier had just been killed. "We are facing a pack of werewolves. The legendary werewolves? Is that so?" "Yes." Mansari nodded. "I remember the first time you came to Tota Snow Mountain. It was the day of the incident. A tourist was bitten. The townspeople wanted to cover it up, but the doctor from the clinic was an outsider, and the incident was exposed." "Wait, why did the townspeople want to cover it up? Are they afraid that it will affect the tourist income?" "No, the townspeople are all descendants of werewolves. They have always been in contact with the werewolves in the Snow Mountain. Because of that incident, the military finally noticed it," Mansari said. "Why didn't the military exterminate the werewolves? Can't they do it?" At this moment, a soldier hurriedly ran in. "Sir, outside. What's going on outside?" "There's an old man outside. He said he's the representative of the werewolves. He wants to negotiate with you." Mansari rushed out of the base and saw an old man standing at the gate. The soldiers around him were all pointing their guns at the old man. Limu and Vestana followed him out and looked at the situation outside. Mansari stared at the old man. "You are a werewolf. We call ourselves the Belvos," the old man said. "What do you want to talk to me about?" "Evacuate," the old man said. Mansari smiled. He did not have the right to order an evacuation. Even if he did, he would not leave. He was going to exterminate these werewolves and this so-called Belvov clan. "Do you think that's possible? You humans have betrayed us. Your blockade this time was premeditated. You monsters attacked ordinary people first," Mansari said coldly. "And you tried to cover up the truth, which caused the situation to escalate. No, you don't understand at all. The person who was bitten asked for it. He and that doctor, they are not ordinary people. They are Kunkka sect disciples. They wanted to use the military to kill us, the Belvos," Zhao Yu said. "I don't care if you're a Kunkka sect disciple, and I don't care what grudges you have. My duty is to lock down this place and kill all the creatures that appear in my sight. You only have 2 choices now. Either we kill you all, or you surrender." Chapter 13:11. Take him away and lock him in our cell, Mansari said. Let him stay with the corpses of his bastards. Watch him. If he dares to do anything strange, kill him. You're keeping me? The old man stared at Mansari. You'll regret it. I've never regretted taking him away. Just like that, the old man was taken away by 2 soldiers. The 2 soldiers kept pointing their guns at him. If the old man did anything that made them uneasy, they would shoot immediately. Limu and Vestana stepped aside to make way for the old man. When the old man walked past them, they felt a chill run down their spines. The old man suddenly stopped. The 2 soldiers behind him raised their guns nervously. Go. Don't move. The old man ignored them. You 2 don't look like soldiers. Limu and Vestana became even more nervous. Run away. Soon, this place will become hell. With that, the old man went straight into the depths of the base. President, that guy has a bad temper. He didn't even give me any face. He even said that he would disband the supernatural organization. Why does he have the same attitude as that old *Shou Leon? Chen Zhao asked, annoyed. West only gave a brief explanation. He didn't go into too much detail. If he told Chen Zhao everything that Mansari had done, Chen Zhao would definitely go berserk. Since he doesn't want to coexist peacefully with us, just ignore him. Where are you now? Klaus and I are still in the Canadian border city. When are you coming back? President, I heard some news. Do you want to hear it? What news? It's about the legend of Mount Tota Snow Mountain. The area that the military sealed off? Yes, the legend here, West said. Wester said. Legend has it that there are 2 legendary creatures in the Great Pagoda Snow Mountain. One is the wolf spirit, and the other is the snow demon. The wolf spirit is known as the Belvos clan, and the snow demon is known as the Kunkka clan. The 2 clans have been enemies for generations, killing each other until a human witch joined the Belvos. The balance of the war finally tilted towards the Belvos. The snow demons were slaughtered, and the king of the snow demon, Kunkka, was sealed in the Great Pagoda Snow Mountain. The wolf spirit and snow demon actually exist, right? According to the locals, the wolf spirit is probably a werewolf clan. But werewolves came from Europe in the 18th century, while the legend of the wolf spirit is from the earliest immigrants. Wes paused for a moment before continuing. I found out that there's a cult in Canada called the Kunkka sect. They believe in the god of the snow mountain. Their teachings are very twisted, and their actions are even more extreme. They often kidnap innocent people and send them to the snow mountain before dismembering them. Since the last century, there have been more than 23 suspected Kunkka sect sacrificial ceremonies in Canada. Oh, does this have anything to do with us? It has nothing to do with us, but according to my investigation, someone was bitten by a creature suspected to be a wolf on the snowy mountain, and the victim disappeared. So I suspect that the initial victim was just a trap that lured the Belvos and the military into this trap. Actually, we don't need to consider who's right and who's wrong. Don't make things so complicated, Chen Zhao said. Let's consider one thing now. Should we intervene? West froze. If this keeps getting worse and ends up in the hands of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department, we might have to intervene in the end. That's right, Chen Zhao said. So we don't have to wait until it's too late. We have to consider when we can get the most benefits. Then when do you think we should act? If the information you found is true, then Kunkka sect's goal is to release the king of the snow demons. The military base is about to collapse. That's our chance. Under what name? Do we need any name? We're the supernatural organization. Chen Zhao chuckled. Have you forgotten our duty? Chen Zhao never felt that maintaining peace in the supernatural world was the supernatural organization's duty. In reality, most of what they did was passive. Things happened and people came to them. Only then would they act according to the circumstances. But according to the initial concept of the supernatural organization, when they knew of supernatural events, they would act first and solve the problem. In layman's terms, the supernatural organization had always been very inactive and irresponsible. In other words, they wouldn't act unless the higher-ups came to them. President, if that guy still doesn't know what's good for him, I suggest we let him die there. What about his background? He's from the military. Will he cause trouble for us? I've checked his basic files. I've looked into his basic files. He first served in the Marine Corps and was on the YLK battlefield. He was once the captain of a commando team, then served as a flying instructor at an Air Force base for 3 years, and then served as a military officer at the Overseas Combat Command for 2 years. After that, he was transferred back to the country and became an officer in charge of domestic combat operations. To put it simply, this guy is a substitute who fills in the gaps. He was appointed to replace Leong because of Leang's poor performance in recent years, and also because he's old. So the higher-ups want to send a more ambitious person to take over the position of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department Minister. His parents are ordinary people without any political background, and he was able to take over the Anti-Terrorism Security Department because of his outstanding performance in the military. Then we'll do as you say, if I still feel his evil intentions when we arrive. To be honest, some things were out of one's control. Chen Zhao used to hate scheming and deceiving people. But now, Chen Zhao had become the kind of person he used to hate the most. For example, Chen Zhao used to hate capitalists, but now, he was a real capitalist. People would change, and they would change unknowingly. Don't call me tonight. I don't have time. After hanging up, Chen Zhao entered the river map. Chen Zhao needed to continue learning new spells. The Thousand Swords spell wasn't perfected yet. Chen Zhao could already learn basic attacks, but he could only attack without any technique. Chapter 13:12. If it was a small-scale attack, Dark Magma was obviously better than Imperial Thousand Swords. However, Dark Lava's range wasn't large. It could only attack within a 30-meter radius. Beyond that, the density of the attacks would decrease. Royal Thousand Swords was much better in range, but it was much weaker in control than Dark Lava. Dark Lava was produced by Chen Zhao's King of Wrath bloodline. It was as natural as Chen Zhao's hands and feet. But Royal Thousand Swords was more like a craft. It needed to be practiced. Right now, Royal Thousand Swords couldn't compare to Dark Lava. At least, Chen Zhao couldn't control it as he wished. What Chen Zhao needed to practice now was to split the Thousand Swords into 2 waves. Practicing Royal Thousand Swords was difficult and complicated. However, Chen Zhao could feel that Royal Thousand Swords' functionality was even better than his other abilities and spells. However, splitting the Thousand Swords into 2 waves of swords seemed to be easier than he had imagined. Chen Zhao only needed to practice 100 times to do it. It was also easier to control. Chen Zhao started to split them into 4 waves. This was much more difficult than 2. The difficulty suddenly increased by more than 10 times. It was difficult for Chen Zhao to even separate the 4 sword waves, let alone control them. It was very difficult. It might have something to do with human habits. He was used to using both arms, so it was easy for him to split the 2 waves of swords. But he couldn't grasp the point of the 4 waves. Chen Zhao still used the old method, which was the stupidest method. He had to practice tirelessly, correct and try again and again. Humans had muscle memory, but they also had magic memory. There was no such thing as never being able to learn. As long as it was within his abilities and he practiced enough, he would eventually learn. Chen Zhao practiced almost 10,000 times. Now he could barely split them into 4 waves, but he still couldn't attack. When Chen Zhao came out of the river map, it was already late at night. Fei Lai was already asleep. Chen Zhao sat in the middle of Mirror Lake and meditated. This was when Cerberus and Little Nine were the most active. But Little Nine was already very big now. Its growth was completely unlimited. Its body was over 30 meters long, and each head was 80 centimeters in diameter. Its waist was even over 2 meters in diameter. Its appetite was even greater. Every time it ate, it would eat 9 cows. However, every time it ate, it would not eat or drink for several days. In terms of diet, they were similar to ordinary snakes. They ate a lot of food at once and needed time to digest it. Every time it was digested, it would grow a lot bigger. Luckily, Little Nine was not a picky eater and would not insist on some expensive beef. In order to provide food for Little Nine, Chen Zhao raised 100 cows on a plain not far from Mirror Lake. Of course, they were all left to fend for themselves. There was no one to take care of them. But these hundreds of cows, it was estimated that in less than 2 months, they would be almost completely eaten by Little Nine. Chun Zhao thought about raising more cows. Based on Little Nine's growth rate, Chun Zhao had no doubt that Little Nine's appetite would triple in a year. Everyone get ready. There will be a terrifying snowstorm tonight. Mansari looked at the howling snowstorm with a hint of worry in her eyes. Mansari looked at Li Mu and Vestana. Both of them were a little uneasy. They all felt that the situation was not good. They did not know if it was the old werewolf's warning. Not just them, but all the soldiers felt like they were facing a great enemy. Do you two know how to use machine guns? Mansari asked. All I have to do is pull the trigger, right? Vestana asked. Forget it. Mansari shook her head. Using a gun was not as simple as pulling the trigger. If they thought that they only needed to pull the trigger, they would only hurt themselves and their companions. Just then a soldier ran in from outside. Sir, there are more than 10 people outside. More than 10 people? Are they the bastard's companions again? They did not say who they are, but they said they are willing to help us fight against those werewolves. Frowning, Mansari strode outside. When he walked outside, he saw more than 10 men and women. This alarmed him, because werewolves looked almost the same as humans before they changed. He could not help but suspect that these people were actually werewolves. Who are you people? An old man stood out from the group. He held a wooden cane in his hand, and his beard almost reached his abdomen. He looked like the sage from Lord of the Rings. We are the enemies of the Belvos, the old man said. Why should I believe you? Mansari looked at them cautiously. How do I know that you are not those bastards? We do not need to prove anything, the old man said. You just need to see what we can do. Then what can you do? The old man tapped the ground with his cane, and the snow around him suddenly rolled. All the soldiers in Mansari became alert as they looked at the strange scene. Then, an ice wall rose from the ground. The ice wall slowly rose, and the ice wall was covered with spikes. Everyone was dumbfounded, and their faces were filled with astonishment. What is going on? Mansari's expression became serious. How did you do it? Since you have seen werewolves before, are you surprised to see magic again? The old man looked at Mansari. Mansari's eyes were like lightning as he examined the dozen people behind the old man. They are like you? Yes, we have been enemies with the Belvos for generations. The meaning of our existence is to eradicate the Belvos. For some reason, he felt that these people were not as noble as they said. They had their own goals. Can your magic stop the blizzard? Mansari asked. To the soldiers in the base, the biggest enemy was not the werewolves, but the blizzard. The snowstorm affected them too much. Every time, the werewolves would attack during the blizzard. No, we do not have enough power to stop the blizzard. You can stay, but you cannot enter the base. Are you going to let us stand in the cold all day? The old man looked at Mansari. Can't you use magic to build ice walls? You can build your own ice castle. Also, you are not cold, right? Chapter 13:13. The wind howled in the darkness. In the blizzard, pairs of bloodthirsty and violent green eyes appeared. Inside the fortifications outside the base, the soldiers all saw those hostile eyes. Victory or defeat depends on this, children. For our mother Kunkka. For our mother Kunkka. Kunkka. Kunkka's followers roared and prepared for battle. Even though Kunkka's followers were scheming and far-sighted, leading the military and the Belvos into a trap step by step. But Kunkka's followers still didn't dare to underestimate their old enemy, the Belvos. They had an army, the Atavism army. The Belvos were the largest werewolf clan in North America. They were also called the Snow Wolf clan, and they were different from other werewolf clans. Like zombies, they could bite and infect ordinary humans, and then obtain new clan members. But these infected humans didn't turn into werewolves, but into the atavism werewolves. They would turn into giant wolves. Their intelligence would degenerate, but their strength and speed were above ordinary people. They weren't afraid of death, and they were cruel and bloodthirsty. They were loyal to the Belvos. As long as it was an order from the Belvos, they would unswervingly carry it out. If Kunkka's followers relied on themselves, They couldn't defeat the Belvos. That was why they needed the military. The battle was about to begin. The sound of machine guns being loaded could be heard everywhere. The soldiers were also very nervous. The situation this time was even more urgent than last time. Mansari came in front of the Kunkka elder and asked solemnly, "Are you sure?" "No. But we will try our best to kill those bastards," the elder said. Mansari was satisfied. He didn't care what these people's intentions were. As long as they could help them fight, that was enough. Can't the military send reinforcements? Now that the Belvos are all gathered there, if we can bombard them now, it will definitely have an extraordinary effect, the Kuan-Ka elder said with glowing eyes. Bomb. In this snowstorm, planes can't even get close to this area, let alone guarantee accuracy. The biggest possibility of a forced bombing is that the bomb will fall on our heads. The Kunkka elder looked disappointed and turned to the forest. There were more and more lights in the forest. The Belvos were gathering their army. Inside the fortifications of the base, there were 2 airborne machine guns, howitzers, various firearms, and a large amount of ammunition. Pitter-patter. The base was empty, but there were sounds that made people uneasy. "Lee, do you hear that? It seems to be coming from the dungeon." Since the day when they knew the truth, they had been in a state of uneasiness. Especially tonight's vigilance. The 2 of them were considered non-combatants, so the 2 of them were the only ones guarding the empty base, which made them even more uneasy. The entire base was so quiet that only the sound of water dripping could be heard. "Should we go to the dungeon to take a look?" "In the dungeon? Is that old werewolf imprisoned there? Are we really going? I remember that there are 2 soldiers guarding it. Nothing will happen." The 2 girls supported each other and carefully walked down the stairs. It sounded like something was chewing, and it did come from the depths of the dungeon. When they arrived at the dungeon, they saw 2 guards lying on the ground. But they were not dead, at least not yet. One of them had a severe bite wound on his neck, and the other had a bite wound on his abdomen. They kept twitching on the ground, moaning in pain. The 2 girls wanted to go up and save the 2 soldiers, but as soon as they approached, they saw a figure lying on the ground in the corner of the prison. The old man's tattered clothes were still hanging on his body, but his body had become extremely tall. White fur covered his entire body, but there were still bloodstains on the white fur. This tall werewolf was the old man. The old werewolf was lying on the ground, eating the bodies of his own kind. Vestana and Limu were so scared that their limbs turned cold. They had never seen such a bloody scene. The old werewolf turned his head and looked at the 2 girls, but he ignored them and continued eating the bodies on the ground. Limu immediately picked up the gun on the ground and pointed it at the old werewolf. The old werewolf seemed to have sensed something and turned to look at Limu. "Child, this has nothing to do with you." The old werewolf stood up. He was taller than the werewolves the 2 girls had seen before, at least 3 meters tall. Was this still the old man? Was he really the old man in disguise? The 2 girls were so scared that their faces turned pale. The old werewolf easily twisted the iron bars with his claws, as if he was twisting 2 noodles. When the old werewolf stood in front of Limu and Vestana, the 2 girls were so scared that they did not dare to move. That terrifying aura felt like they would be torn apart if they moved even a little. The old werewolf raised his claws lightly, picked up the machine gun in Limu's hand, and threw it far away. "As long as you stay here obediently, you will not be harmed. This war has nothing to do with you," the old werewolf said. "You, what do you want?" Limu mustered up his courage and asked, "What do I want?" "To win this war," the old werewolf replied. At this time, the bodies of the 2 bitten soldiers on the ground began to change rapidly. The spasms intensified. Limu and Vestana could feel the pain they were suffering. Finally, the first soldier's body began to transform from a human into a wolf. Then, the second soldier turned into a wolf. The 2 snow wolves that had just completed their transformation stared at Limu and Vestana like tigers watching their prey. Their eyes were filled with hunger. "Go and eat what's inside. This war has nothing to do with them," the old werewolf ordered. The 2 snow wolves looked at the 2 girls, but in the end, they turned back into the prison and began to devour the corpses. We are not beasts, the old werewolf said. At least we are rational. Even beasts would not eat the corpses of their own kind, Vestana said angrily. Yes, only humans will eat people. The old werewolf said. I have no choice but to do this. Werewolves can't eat the corpses of their own kind. If they eat the corpses of their own kind, they won't be far from death. However, in order to win this war, I can only eat the corpses of my own kind. In order to survive, they have just completed their transformation. If they can't eat, they will die quickly. Chapter 13-14. Do you think that we the Belvos started this war? The old werewolf said. This is all part of Kunka's conspiracy, and we the Belvos have no time to waste. In June, the snow and ice on the mountain will melt, and all of us will turn into snow wolves. This will continue until November, and we will return to our werewolf form. So we don't have time to waste. We must end this war as soon as possible. Why did that Kunka do this? To break the seal. The old werewolf said. Before the Belvos came to this land, this place was already occupied by a group of demons. We fought with them for hundreds of years, and then we reached an agreement with the humans to eliminate these demons together and seal their leader, Kunka, into our bloodline. But that period of history is so far away that the humans have forgotten the oath they once made with us. The remnants of Kunka's tribe are plotting to hunt us down. As long as they kill enough Belvos, they can use our blood to break the seal. I took the initiative to enter this place and devour the bodies of my fellow tribesmen, so that there won't be any future trouble. Of course, this will also allow me to increase my strength in a short period of time. Then, I will cooperate with my tribesmen outside to destroy this base and kill all the soldiers. This is the only way to end this war. In other words, you are actually the invaders? Whatever you think, but aren't you humans the same? The old werewolf did not deny it. Once Kunka is resurrected, you will be banished from this snowy land forever. She used to be the ruler of this snowy land. The Belvos and humans sacrificed countless people to defeat Kunka, so we will never let this hard-won victory be overturned. But now, you humans are standing on the opposite side. Humans are no longer the barbarians of the past. The human army can crush everything, Westana said firmly. Humans may be able to rule everything outside, but not here. The human army can't even enter this place, the old werewolf said indifferently. The old werewolf said indifferently. He was once a human, and hid in the human society. His understanding of humans was no less than Limu and Westana. Kunka is much scarier than you can imagine. In the era of Kunka's existence, this place was a forbidden zone for other creatures. Any creature that entered this place could not leave alive. But the Belvos and humans still defeated Kunka in the end, didn't they? They can still do it now. Your thinking is too simple. Defeating Kunka is almost equivalent to starting a war. This is the border between the United States and Canada. Do you think the governments of these two countries would allow a war to happen within their borders? The old werewolf's tone suddenly paused as a wolf's howl seemed to come from outside. The war has begun. At the same time, Klaus and Wester were standing on a snow-covered cliff. Below the cliff was the military base. Phew, it's really cold here. Klaus shivered. Fuck you. Wester rolled his eyes at Klaus and tugged at his down jacket. You're the one who insisted on wearing this thin field outfit. How can I fight while wearing a down jacket? Klaus felt cold, but it was not to the point where he could not bear it. Mr. Wester, why don't you learn other spells such as fire? That can bring me some warmth. The temperature below 20 degrees Celsius, coupled with the attack of the snowstorm, did cause some trouble for him. But it was not fatal. Their battle has begun, Klaus said with a pair of binoculars. It's about time to inform the president and the others. You call the president. I'll call Gaia and the others. No, the president just said not to call him tonight. It's 3 in the morning now. If you call him now, he might kill you. Klaus immediately refused. You asterisk Shoal, that's an order. Mr. Wester, why don't you call? Wester did not want to call either. It was scary to disturb Chen Zhao's sleep. Especially since Fei Lai's belly was so big now. Chen Zhao almost stopped anything that could disturb her, especially the phone. Whatever, The military base below isn't that easy to break through. I believe they can last until dawn. God bless them. Wester did not plan on saving the people in the military anyway. If they died, so be it. I think the president knows a little wolf girl. Ah, does the president know other werewolves? If we just stand by and watch, won't the guild leader blame us? There are so many werewolves in the world. That little wolf girl's fur color is different from these snow wolves, Wester said disapprovingly. Also, that little wolf girl is bigger than these snow wolves. The shape of her head is also different, so I'm sure that they're not from the same tribe. Hearing Wester's analysis, Klaus also heaved a sigh of relief. There were no written rules in the association, but everyone had an unspoken rule. They had to help each other. If they were related to each other's family, they had to help their family. For example, if Klaus saw Gaia's son Evans being bullied by other kids, he would also go and kick the kid's butt. Is there a big difference between each werewolf tribe? There are some obvious differences, but most of them are relatively normal. For example, these Belvos are obviously small werewolves. Generally, an adult werewolf is about 2.5 meters tall, but this group of werewolves is only 2 meters tall. But their speed is really fast, and in terms of defense, they are also stronger than ordinary werewolves. Those spiritualists are Kunka's disciples, right? Are they the ones stirring up trouble behind the scenes? It should be them. Suddenly, a beam of light appeared in the distance. Klaus and Wester both realized that a figure had appeared in the distance. Roar! It was a Belvos werewolf. Wester and Klaus did not expect that a werewolf would run here, and coincidentally run into them while the battle was so intense. This werewolf was smaller than an adult werewolf, around 1.7 meters tall. But since it was a werewolf, they could not judge its strength like normal people. All werewolves were dangerous to a certain extent. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.